ahead and get started since it's 5:30, and then hopefully Sherry, other members, and Jeff will join on before the time I finish, just to get things rolling. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the November 2021 Charlottesville Board of Architectural Review virtual meeting. We are now live on channel 10, and we're continuing to stream on the city's streaming channels. My name is Robert Watkins. I'm city staff, and I'll be moderating tonight's meeting. Before I hand things over to Carl Schwartz, our chair, I'll go over a few guidelines and housekeeping tips just to make sure that everything runs smoothly for everybody participating. So first, for everybody who might be watching at home, I will introduce the meeting participants who are online right now. First, we have Carl Schwartz, the chair of the BAR. We're also joined by Brett Gastinger, vice chair. Other BAR members include Ron Bailey, Jody Lehendro, James Zemer, Robert Edwards, and a few other members should be joining as well before the meeting starts rolling. We're also joined by Jeff Werner, who is city staff as well. Throughout the meeting, applicants and other participants will join the meeting as necessary. For members of the public who are on the call right now who are looking to provide comment, there are several places in the agenda where you can speak. At the beginning of the meeting, we allow time for comments from the public for items not on the agenda or for items that are on the consent agenda. And then before the BAR deliberates on each individual application, we allow time for public comment as well. In order to provide comment, you'll need to be a member of this Zoom call. So if you're not already, you can go to the city calendar, register for the meeting, and then join. And then you'll have to raise your hand when it comes to the comment section, and I will unmute you. For applicants who are already online, for your presentation, I'll be sharing my own screen to pages of the application you submitted for visual aid. And if you need me to go to a specific page, you can just direct me to go there. Throughout the meeting, we'll have short periodic breaks as needed, and our chair will direct us for when we'll have those. And with that, I can pass things on to Carl Schwartz, but feel free to ask me any questions if you have any technical issues throughout the meeting. Thank you.
All right, well, welcome to this regular monthly meeting of the Charlottesville Board of Architectural Review. Staff will introduce each item, followed by the applicant's presentation, which should not exceed 10 minutes. I will then ask for questions from the public, followed by questions from the BAR. After questions are closed, I'll ask for comments from the public. For each application, members of the public are each allowed 3 minutes to ask questions and 3 minutes to offer comments. Speakers shall identify themselves and provide their address. Comments should be limited to the BAR's purview, that is, regarding only the exterior aspects of a project. Following the BAR's discussion and prior to taking action, the applicant will have up to 3 minutes to respond. Thank you for participating. So, first item is the matters from the public not on the agenda or items that are on the consent agenda. So if you have something to speak about that is either on the consent agenda or is not one of our regular items after the consent agenda, now would be the time to do so. The items that are on the consent agenda are 218 West Market Street, 106 Oakhurst Circle, 122 Maywood Lane, 128 Chancellor Street, 1804 Chesapeake Street, and 745 Park Street.
I already see some raised hands, but to others, if you'd like to provide comment on any of these items or for items not on the agenda, you can raise your hand using the raise hand feature. I see a raised hand from Robert Allebach. Robert, I will allow you to talk. You will need to unmute yourself, and then you can speak to the BAR.
All right, can you hear me now, Robert?
Yes, we can hear you.
So I represent the Kappa Delta House, which is at 120 Chancellor Street, the neighbor to the one that's on the consent agenda. I think it's 124. And they made some significant revisions to their front yard, which I think actually look terrific. From that standpoint, we really only had one comment, and is that they had benches along the street And for you that have traveled along the street, there's parking on the street, and if the sidewalk is quite narrow, it's only 3 feet wide. And if they leave the benches where they are, there really isn't a lot of room, especially if somebody was to sit on the benches and face outward. So we had 3 suggestions, and they can take where they would like, but one would be to make the benches perpendicular to the street, so then that wouldn't inhibit it. Or if you just moved them back like 1 foot away or 1 foot closer to the home, that would probably leave enough space so people were sitting there dangling their legs and so forth, people could get by. So that was the extent of our comments.
Thank you very much. I see another raised hand from Bill Sherman. Bill, I will allow you to talk, and you'll need to unmute yourself.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes.
I want to thank Robert for those comments. And I just wanted to note that we do take those concerns seriously. And one of the things we have done since the last round as part of our revision, which involved increasing the trees, plantings, bushes, shrubs in that front area, was to reduce the size of those benches so that you wouldn't have groups of people gathering on them. It's a challenge to pull them back or to run them perpendicular without that's not a lot of space through there, but happy to explore some more subtle aspects of the design that may encourage people to be sitting facing in. They were originally intended in a kind of spirit of generosity on the part of the institution in providing seating that in a sense doubles as participating in the street and participating in anyone passing by, but are aware of the concerns about the narrowness of the sidewalk, and happy to have further discussions, but I think it would be at a scale that actually would not involve any substantive change to the design, but maybe something subtle that in just in the shape of the seat allows sort of encourages people to be facing inward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see. So I see another raised hand from Gary Albright. Mr. Albright, I will allow you to talk, and you'll need to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, well, I'm also commenting on 128 Chancellor Street. I'm the neighbor behind this development, and I do think the front of the building looks great, but I know they pushed the back of the building inwards a bit, but it would be nice if there was some more green space. I know they addressed that out front, but the back of the building, even though they pushed it forward, pushed it off our property line, some are now having a stacked wall. There's a lot of trees and green space, and in the corner district, I know they're trying to preserve all the greenery that's possible. And I'm just wondering if there's things that can be done to make the rear of the building a little more ecologically friendly as they're trying to do with the front of the building. That's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Albright. I see. Sorry, I see Bill Sherman has his hand raised again. I will allow you to talk again.
I just might add one quick comment. In the spirit of these revisions throughout the design development process of the project and making changes in relation to what had been previously approved, had in all the cases been to lessen the impact on neighbors. And so by reducing the height of that retaining wall, pulling it away from the property line, creating a planted area between the base of our retaining wall and the existing retaining wall that is on the site, and designing it in a way there where we can actually do the entire construction without actually encroaching on the lower edge of the site, and allowing ourselves that planting area, which I think our plans that are being submitted to the city site plan do show additional shrubs in that area that will grow quite tall, that'll kind of mask the height of that wall, which again is lower than it had been before and farther from the property line than it had been before. So all of our changes here have been moving in that direction to actually lessen the impact of this project on all of the neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if there are any other members of the public who wish to provide any comment on the items on the consent agenda or for items not on the agenda, please raise your hand, or if you're calling in, press *9. We have 17 attendees, Mr. Chair, and I don't see any other raised hands.
I'd like to pull 106 Oakhurst Social Circle from the consent agenda, please.
Okay. Anything else that you guys would like to pull, or are we okay with? There's been some discussion on 128 Chancellor. Are we okay leaving that as is? Okay. All right. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with 106 Oakhurst Circle pulled from it?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will call a vote. Mr. Gastinger,
Aye.
Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lehendro,
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz,
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Zemer,
Aye.
and Ms. Lewis.
Aye.
The consent agenda passes unanimously.
All right.
Less 106 Oakhurst Circle.
So that should be our first item on the agenda tonight.
Jeff, while you get ready for the staff report, I will pull up the presentation.
Hey, Robert, I'm going to ask if you could take it for me.
Sure.
While they're doing that, James, shouldn't you be at the Houston Arena getting ready for the basketball game?
No, sorry.
Huh.
Here, Houston's dangerous for large crowds these days.
Not virtually.
There you go.
I don't think.
I'll go ahead and get started on this. I will kind of breeze through so that we can talk with the applicant and move forward with this. So 106 Oakhurst Circle is a house built in 1922 in the Oakhurst Gildersleeve ADC district. The BAR previously reviewed projects at this address, most recently in September 2020. One, when the BAR approved a COA for alterations to the existing house and a rear addition. However, the landscape plan was omitted. So this submittal is the applicant submitting the necessary landscape plan. So Patrick Farley submitted the landscape plan in September, and it has the plantings mentioned here. The project will retain the existing driveway and use a new driveway for access to and egress from the parking area behind the house. But this parking will not create a loop around the perimeter of the property. To allow flexibility in the required placement and width of the new driveway, the City Code Section 34972 allows for the BAR to make recommendations to the city traffic engineer, and the suggested motion for approval includes that recommendation. So Patrick, I know that you're online. I can go ahead and scroll down to your application, and if you wish to provide any additional comments, you can do so.
And Patrick, before you start, let me just, the reason this got pulled was there was some concern over the keeping the existing driveway. So feel free to explain your, the whole site plan concept if you like, but that was the main reason that this got pulled.
Okay, everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I will just address that. I guess the concern is that, or is a question that is it necessary? Is that the question? I mean, we're going to retain we have the right to actually to retain the existing driveway for parking purposes. So right now you could squeeze 2 cars into it. But in the new iteration of this property where we're going to have 4 bedrooms, thus, theoretically at least 4 tenants, we're increasing the capacity for the site to hold up to 4 cars, possibly more if you can squeeze them in to take pressure off the circle, but also anticipating possible future development of the site down the road. So we're looking to get off-street, out of the front yard, but retain, since we obviously already have it in place, that we would improve what's there. And just to sort of preempt any questions around zoning, we've already had zoning look at this. The only issues are or requirements have to do with setbacks at the side property lines, which we need. And then there's the minimum requirement of 20 feet between the driveway cuts at the curb line. We have about 26 feet. So we meet the 3-foot setbacks on either side and the setback or the separation between the driveway cuts, rather. So.
All right, well, thank you. Well, first, are there any questions from the public?
Mr. Chair, I don't see any raised hands.
Okay. Questions from the board? Okay. Comments from the public? Please raise your hand or press *9.
I don't see any raised hands.
Okay. Comments from the board?
I'll go since I pulled this. Thank you, Patrick, for coming back. I was just felt like from the conversation that we had and several times we've seen this project that we had been pretty clear that we had strongly preferred moving the driveway access to the other side, and we did not like very much the idea of the drive looping all the way around the back. So it came, at least to me, a bit of a surprise that the drive remained kind of further establishing this as a permanent parking space, which is now a pretty informal gravel drive. And I feel like it's not in the keeping with the spirit of our guidelines. In fact, our section 2, letter F, site design and elements, includes things like, if new parking areas are necessary, construct them so that they reinforce the street wall of buildings, locate parking lots behind buildings, and number 4, avoid creating parking areas in the front yards of historic building sites. I think, going from, having already a pretty narrow lot, having, so much of the yard dedicated to driveway access and parking flies a little bit in the face of that. I don't know if the rest of the board feels that way, but I feel it sets a kind of a damaging precedent, and certainly would have preferred to not see that driveway remain.
Any others?
I'll jump in with my own opinion in going around Oakhurst Circle. Generally, a very distinctive character of the district in Oakhurst Circle is the number of plantings and grass and greenery in the front of the building. And I worry that this sets a precedent for allowing more and more parking right in the front and taking away from that greenery and that suburban quality of the circle. Especially imagining cars sitting there.
I'll also add that just to agree with Breck and Jody, and also to add that we've spent a lot of time in previous meetings with this applicant discussing the change location of the driveway and configuration of it. And I'm just disappointed that this would come back pretty inapposite to how we've supported this application, but that it would come back on a landscaping plan. It's a little disingenuous, to be quite honest.
Well, I'll jump in. I think that so while I would have preferred that this existing driveway would have gone away, and that that was what I thought we had discussed. It is an existing driveway. It would currently already hold cars on it. So it's not like we're adding more parking in the front yard. We're adding a drive to the backyard, which is more pavement. I stared at this for quite a while, looked at it on Google Earth or Google Street View. Personally, I'd be willing to approve it because again, they're not adding parking, which is what we had a problem with on Park Street. They're making an existing spot not gravel. But yeah, that's where I stand.
I think they're making it, well, the plan is to put like crushed Buckingham slate there. It's not gravel, but it's not asphalt either. Which I think is good. I think Carl's got a point. It is an existing drive and parking area. So it's tough to, I kind of agree with Carl. I'd like to see it go away, but at the same time, it's tough to argue against something that's already there. I do think, I had a chance to kind of look back at the video because we haven't seen the actual minutes from the September meeting. And, it looks like he did address one of the concerns in terms of the sidewalk going straight out to the street and the little bench walls flanking the front door not being asymmetrical. So I just appreciate that. He did respond to our comments on that front. Y'all saw the emails kind of right before the meeting. I think it's worth pulling to discuss, but I agree kind of with Carl.
I wonder if I could ask Patrick a question. When we talked about moving the driveway in the past, it was largely in the context of a through passage. Have you looked at whether just keeping the existing drive as the access to the proposed parking would work and not require the new curb cut?
We did, yeah. I mean, it's a pretty tight squeeze through there, and then there's the topography at the rear that makes it pretty difficult to, not impossible, but pretty difficult. So this is a way to, take the path of least resistance. Obviously, we've got to make some alterations, but we were going to do that anyway with that south porch. So it is a better plan, I guess, from a traffic flow standpoint. And while I have the floor, I'm going to say I could possibly have misunderstood you all in the previous meeting. I haven't looked back at the minutes or the video, but I do not recall agreeing to delete that existing condition. I do recall very clearly, and I did it right away, getting rid of the loop and reconfiguring the site accordingly. But I don't have any recollection of agreeing to getting rid of the driveway. But yes, as James just acknowledged, I did revise the front yard scheme and front porch design as we discussed.
And
I do want to ask, though, what do you?
It could very well be my misunderstanding too, because I just assumed that when we talked about putting in a new driveway that the old one would go away. I did not realize we're talking about keeping the old one and putting a new one in.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. The issue really was, again, as I recall, it was the loop. It was the drive through the circuit. That was too much site involvement, site impact relative to, the little addition and 4-bedroom home. That I accepted that because it actually did make sense. I wasn't entirely surprised. But I will ask, in the context of the new land use plan having been adopted, where this is a medium intensity district, or will be, does anybody have any opinion about that? Just this, keeping current conditions in anticipation of potentially doing something else with this site down the road.
I feel like that's a Pandora's box type question where
I hesitate to ask it.
We can approve. Well, I don't know what the future BAR will approve when a large development wants to show up in a historic district. But we still, until we change our guidelines, those are our guidelines. But all that said, I think we definitely owe you a vote to see if there may be enough support for this.
Yes, I have a quick question. If you were going to be doing a loop, that means that driveway would have been useful for getting behind the building anyway. So why aren't you using that driveway to get behind the building and then not opening a new curb?
I'm not saying we are. I'm just saying that's a potential future idea that we've discussed. But that means it'd be very difficult to do that coming as an in versus an out. And it requires more site work for sure at this point.
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion, and if it fails, then we'll discuss something else. But as I say that, I need to find our suggested emotion. There was okay, good, the extra text isn't there. So having considered the standards set forth in the city code, including city's ADC district design guidelines, and move to find the proposed landscaping plan for 106 Oakhurst Circle satisfies the BAR's criteria and is compatible with this property and other properties in the Oakhurst Gildersleeve ADC district, and that the BAR approves the application as submitted. Additionally, the BAR recommends the city traffic engineer allow flexibility relative to the required driveway entrance with a particular concern to extent possible the preservation of the existing granite curbstones. Yeah. Is there a second? No. Motion fails.
Usually have that happen.
Would someone, all right, well, Patrick, it looks like you need to come to a compromise.
Is there a compromise where we some sort of material can be used for the existing parking area that would allow grass to grow between the units and at least keep the green?
Yes, we're actually doing that in that new entrance. Grid pavers. We could simply repeat the grid, the open cell, grid pavers so it's a symmetrical condition.
And it allows grass. It's not just a pervious paving, but it allow grass to grow and can be green.
Yes.
And Patrick, when you say grid pavers, these are the concrete with the little holes in them?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be impossible to ask for a sample to be passed around, but I just wondered if the applicant could produce a photo or maybe send that to Robert so we could see what we're talking about, if this is a viable. I mean, I'm looking at the plan itself, but I don't not familiar, and I don't want to rely on my familiarity with it.
Robert, if you just Google concrete grid paver and share your screen, it's the first thing that pops up.
I think that's a good idea.
So Patrick wasn't talking about the plastic ones. If you type in concrete before grid pavers.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Is that what you were thinking, Patrick?
Yeah. Exactly. I had an image of exactly that product there to the left in my original application.
This image, Patrick?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it was not exactly that image, but it's that product. It's
Sure.
that same pattern.
Yeah.
So that's the idea.
Well, it's not ideal, but I could support that. I'm not sure what Breck would say.
I still feel, I think we're talking about one parking space here, because if the circle were actually the additional street parking, there'd be a car that would be able to park on the street in that location. I feel it's against our guidelines, so I'm going to vote against it. Otherwise, I think the planting plan is really great. I love the pallets. I just want to make sure we get to say that.
Okay. Appreciate that. Yeah, I forgot to Breck's point to note that we're sort of atoning, creating a new driveway cut. We're trading, we're losing one, but we still have one on site, one off street space off site. I'm sorry, off street on site. So.
So Jody said he'd be willing to accept this compromise. Anyone else? James? All right, that's not enough yet. Anything that would make a fourth person happy? Okay.
It's for me, it's the cars parked in the front of the yard. This is not a driveway that would be approved in Charlottesville today, nor by this board, if it were new. And in a weird way, the drive passing around the site would actually be better, because you wouldn't have cars parked in the front yards of this neighborhood, but it would be even fewer parking spaces if that were the case.
I guess the question would be, would the applicant be willing to accept a motion that included removal of that existing parking, or would we want to see the revised planning plan? You're muted, Carl.
I know, I'm just laughing. You ask a question that I don't want to think about.
I think
He was trying to be chair. Doing a good
All
job.
right. I should stop.
It sounds like, so the rest of you do not want to see the existing parking space remain, or the existing driveway remain. You want to see it go away. Is that the correct understanding? Jerry, Robert, Ron? Okay. Sorry, I got to look at 10 different places.
So I guess the question that James just asked to the applicant, it wasn't really answered. I wonder if that is a good question to ask the applicant at this point, since we're looking at a denial, but over objection to one feature. I wondered if the applicant had a response to that in order to get.
You mean resubmit this, go through this next month? Is that what you're the implication
I
is?
think that you've got a majority that would vote for this landscape plan if that vestigial parking space were removed in the front. And I guess the question is whether you would agree to delete that. I think we can do that here, and otherwise
Yeah.
approve your plan. So you would not have to resubmit. Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
not a
that's
very
what I
good
prefer
chair.
to-
Carl
because
does a
we're-
better job.
Yeah.
You got it.
Sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt. Yes, fine. We are literally, we've got a building permit about to be issued any moment. We can't delay this another month. It's been going on already too long. So, I mean, we've already lost a month here. So, yes, we'll delete it.
Okay.
I don't know what we're going to do with that deletion, but we'll figure something out. I guess the assumption is just after all the 80 years of compaction, it will become, we'll have to aerate it and make it lawn or something, or extend the planting plan. But I assume that doesn't have to be resubmitted.
I would think so.
Right? We're deleting a driveway, but we don't have to resubmit for what it is we're doing with the empty space there in the end.
I defer to Jeff for some guidance.
But I honestly don't know. I think, that there's maybe a range of options that could be expressed. And if they ultimately deviates from that, then it could be examined then. I think presumably some sort of continuity of the landscaping or
Well, yeah.
grass. But I think that gives you an option to phrase the conditions, and then if it changes, then we evaluate. Sorry.
It could be.
Sorry. I understand. I will figure it out and it'll be good, but I just want to make sure that we are clear on the process here, that I don't have to resubmit. You're telling me we've got to remove an existing driveway, but that we don't have to come back for approval on what we do there.
Go ahead, Carl.
I was just gonna say, I would just tell us that you're gonna sod it or turn it to grass, and if down the line you want to extend the plantings, email Jeff about it, and it might just not have to come in front of us.
Well, I don't think it needs to come in front of us. When we've approved things in the past with conditions, we've sometimes requested that whatever the final plan is submitted for the record.
Yeah, that's fair.
I was going to suggest that, and that was the second half of my question. And I guess I would just want to add, if we're removing that parking space, that we also remove the curb cut and repair the sidewalk back to a normal sidewalk in that location.
I mean, wouldn't you be removing some granite at the new driveway location? So that could possibly be reused? That makes sense?
Yes, possibly. Yeah, in theory, yes.
And I mean, you call it a pollinator garden. I would imagine that could just be extended. What is it, 10 feet or 8 feet, whatever the width of that, it's not all that wide.
Looks like concrete just
Something
adjacent.
along those lines. Yeah.
What's there now in front of the existing driveway is it's really a curious piece. It's a striated concrete. It appears that the city, whenever it did the new contemporary curb and gutter sidewalk, ran up to it and stopped. So in some ways that's a feature in and of itself, but
Right.
I guess what I'm trying to avoid is if we just agree to let him sod it, but leave the curb cut, it'll become a parking spot again.
Mhm.
So then what you're also asking is that granite curb and gutter be infilled, extended So that you're not just addressing what happens at the no longer driveway, but also what happens at the street.
That'd be my preference. I don't know if the rest of y'all agree. I think Sherry's idea, if they can reuse material removed from the other side, is a good one.
That was part of, actually, it was part of staff's proposed motion was preservation of the existing granite curbstones. So I'm happy to throw a motion out there and be open to friendly amendments to move us along.
Please do.
Having considered the standards set forth within the city code, including the city's EDC district guidelines, I move to find that the proposed landscaping plan for 106 Oakhurst Circle satisfies the BAR's criteria and is compatible with this property and other properties in the Oakhurst Gildersleeve ADC district. And the BAR approves the application as submitted with the modification that the existing parking spot be removed and that area be landscaped consistent with the landscaping plan, the adjoining front yard area, that the granite curbstones that will be removed to create the new wraparound drive be reused to close this driveway entrance. And staff's motion also said the BAR recommends the city traffic manager allow flexibility relative to the required driveway width. I think that's just a recommendation, but one that I know would maybe be picked up by the traffic engineer. So anyway, that's my motion.
Second.
All right, before we vote, Patrick, this would be your chance to respond.
I have no further response.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. I will call a vote. Mr. Gastinger,
Aye.
Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lehendro,
Aye.
Mr. Zemer,
Aye.
Mr. Edwards,
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz,
Yes.
and Ms. Lewis.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
All right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Farley. Are we ready to move on to 123 Bollingwood?
Yes, please.
So I know Jeff Dreyfus is online, and I will go ahead and share my screen for that application.
Yeah. Scrolling. Sorry, my computer's not cooperating, but I'm getting there. Oh my God. Come on.
Robert, if I,
Yes.
I believe Anna Beschenstein may also be joining us, and hopefully she'll have an opportunity to speak to the concept site plan.
Sure. Ms. Beschenstein, I will promote you to panelist. You'll be kicked out of the meeting momentarily, but then you'll rejoin and you'll be able to unmute yourself.
All right, good.
Thank you.
All right, so this is a COA request for 123 Bollingwood Road. It is an individually protected property. It constructed in 1884. It's known as the Disney Keith House. It's a vernacular farmhouse. It was actually the Disney family lived there, and from the late 1800s into the early 20th century, and sold it to the Keiths. Actually sold it to a couple families, and then the Keiths came and owned it for some time, and Miss Ellie Wood Keith operated a riding academy in the backyard. And I noted that the barn and outbuilding, the stables that were immediately to the west of the house are no longer existing. And then there is an existing garage to the south of the house that was constructed, I believe, in the 80s. So this is a request that had come to the BAR back in 2010 and had been deferred. And so it's I would say it's been to the BAR, but obviously not to this one. is a request to for a COA for the modification of the west elevation at the rear addition, and that would involve removing a small roof existing over a side entry door, and then replacing that door and the two adjacent windows with a 3-panel sliding door. And I know that the landscape plan is included in this, and Jeff and I discussed that, and it's really shown for concept, but I think it's also an opportunity if there were any questions about that, or as far as when that would come back formally, anything that you all would want to see in that, or any questions you might have. I did a pretty thorough look at this thing and trying to figure out, well, do we know when? You can see it to the side of the house. It almost looks like a telescope that got pulled out to the rear as things grew. And those of you that went over and looked at that house at Hartman's Mill Road some time ago, that I think this has similar circumstances, whereas family grew, they added. With that, we do know that these are additions to the rear, I think, probably constructed in the early 1900s when the Disneys occupied the house. The recommendation, I find my recommendation. So staff suggests the alterations to the buildings should be allowed, in the sense that changing this facade, I think, can be done within the design guidelines. And so the question really is, for you all, from our point of view, is what they're proposing consistent with the guidelines. So I don't think that this elevation is sacrosanct, and I think said alteration should be allowed with the consideration, but just, is this the one that's that you all would approve? So I'll leave it at that. And I know Jeff, Jeff and Jeff Elias, we've been having a lot of fun with all the Jeffs involved with this one. So I don't know which Jeff is going to speak next, but I'm done.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Warner. I'm speaking on behalf of Jeff and Juliana Elias. Good evening, everybody. Yes, we deferred 10 years ago on this, so we're back. And I will, before I forget, request a deferral now, only because no vote is anticipated and no vote is wanted at this point. We have a ways to go. What this presentation is, we include a concept plan done by Anna Beschenstein, and I'll let Anna speak to that a little bit in just a second. What we're here for tonight is for preliminary comments. What you'll see both in the site plan and on the proposed elevation change are our ideas. As a protected property, though, you all have purview over all of the property. And so before we go far at all with any of this, we wanted to solicit your input, your thoughts, the viability of what we're thinking and what the owner is contemplating. So with that, I'll let Anna give a bit of an overview of the site plan. The portion of the building that we're talking about is circled or blocked there in red. It's actually quite small. It's out of sight from Bollingwood Road, and certainly not in view from Alderman to the west, and is a small component. And I'm happy to speak to that once Anna runs us through the plan, concept plan for the landscape. So, Anna?
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is Anna. Okay, as Jeff mentioned, we're in the fairly preliminary stages of figuring out what to do at this property, but we don't plan to do anything besides possibly some foundation planting to the front or the Bollingwood side of the house. We'll keep the existing driveway as you enter across the north side of the house, possibly add a stone or brick pathway to the front door. Right now, there are just a few loose stones and no clear path forward to the main door. Reconfigure the existing parking, just give it a bit more shape And then what they'd really like to do in the back is create more usable space. In the rear yard of the house, there are some drainage issues off the kitchen, which is more or less where Jeff has the red rectangle and proposed change. That's a low point where they've got water draining up against boards of the house. And then the backyard is filled with a lot of stone dust and gravel, or they think it is. I actually, as a side note, as a small child, took riding lessons in this riding arena, so I remember it. And there was this little loop that went right against the house and more or less around where that pool is. So that's all they think stone dust. At the moment, there's an asphalt driveway. The asphalt driveway continues around back through that pool area and connects to the garage that was added after the riding ring was pulled out. So we're suggesting that we reduce the paving that's bisecting the house from its rear yard, contain the parking to the side there, and then give them an upper lawn, which is essentially just a landscaped lawn as it is today on the upper side, and then a retaining wall that will help us deal with some of the grading issues and give them more usable space and a pool in the back. Let's see what else. We're also looking at a pool fence that would be probably a decorative wood fence in conjunction with the wall. And the wall might be brick or stone. We haven't gotten that far. And similarly with the pool terrace and hardscape connecting the various areas. Oh, and then lastly, a pergola in front of the existing garage. That is all I have at the moment, although I'm happy to answer any questions.
Maybe if okay, I'll move on to the facade elevation, facade proposal briefly. So Jeff has already pointed out for you all in his diagrams the area that we're talking about. What's behind this door and two windows. The window on the left is directly into the kitchen. The door straddles the kitchen, and the window on the right is the breakfast area. So that door is a little bit between the two. And the space really has, I'll say, a limited connection with this terrace, which is the place that the family spends most of their time outdoors. And so the proposal here is to put in a larger door system that would connect the indoors much better with the outdoors. That porch is an interesting one because there doesn't seem to be any indication of when it was built. It was after the photos that Jeff shared with us and his chronology, best as we can tell, of how the house got expanded. So in looking at how to open this up to the terrace, in talking with the Eliases, the thought here with the sketch, I believe, probably the next page, well, more of the historic photos, which I think you've seen most of. I will say also that Jeff and Juliana just completed a complete overhaul of the porch, the wraparound porch, which was really exquisitely done. It was just a merely repair, and any replacement was in like kind. So they really do care about caring for the property. If we go on, you can see here the existing elevation, and below it is just a sketch concept. And I'm really here tonight to talk with you all about this. 10 years ago, we were here and we were looking at providing access to the yard from the two windows on the ground floor to the left in the original farmhouse. And it was clear that there was real concern about taking the most historic part of the house and modifying it in a way that would have opened that elevation out to the yard any more than it already is. And so in talking further with them over the years, the idea that we could connect the kitchen and the breakfast room out to this terrace grew and grew on them. So this is a diagram, I would say, though it does express an intent of doing something distinctly different from the historic fabric of the house so that there's no confusion. You know, the guidelines for the Secretary of the Interior are no false historicism. And in thinking about the door system that might go here, we could certainly put in some divided lights, but that seems a little bit hokey and phony to us. And so our thought here is to be distinctly modern in this one intervention in the most inconspicuous part of the entire property. Would also, from an interior perspective, make a huge difference. And in understanding and looking at the design guidelines for the architectural control districts, it's noted that rehabilitation is recognized as the act of bringing an old building into use by adding modern amenities, meeting current building code and providing a use that's viable. So we feel this as being a modern amenity and modern in its style. Wanted to show some examples on the next page of other projects that have done similar types of work, taking old fabric and contrasting the new with it. One of my favorites is the middle top with the way that the modern piece is nicely related in color to other elements of the building. It's also done pretty well with the project on the left. Bottom middle is the idea that we have here of opening up an otherwise very enclosed space to the landscape beyond. And I think that is, I don't have, other than these precedent images for us to talk from, we did not want to take this so far that we were backing ourselves into a corner, and would rather hear you all's thoughts about this concept of something that's bold and distinctly different. And so I think with that may have been the last image. We do have the original survey, a current survey of the property that might explain what Anna was expressing, that currently the driveway comes through the entire property to access the garage. And so removing that seems as though it's a nice step to putting the house back into a fully landscaped setting, as opposed to surrounding it with asphalt to the north, to the west, and Bollingwood Road on the east. So I'll stop there and ask for questions and or just listen.
Thank you very much.
Well, I guess we should do go. Are there any questions from the public? Please raise your hand or press *9.
I don't see any raised hands, Mr. Chair.
Okay, questions from the board. Brett?
Hi, I guess this question is for primarily for Anna. Kind of good to see you. A lot of the architectural description doesn't really refer much to landscape elements other than the more recent riding rink and an earlier apple orchard. But are there any other sort of existing elements or knowledge about earlier design of that rear landscape?
To the rear, not really. In the front, there's a couple beautiful oaks, just really nice character on Bollingwood, but the back has been, you know, it's back in the 70s, 80s, there were these falling down shed row barns, you know, overgrowth, privet.
Yeah.
And then since then, you know, there's been a few attempts at planting some, I think the Jeff Elias and Juliana planted a maple for each one of the children that they'd like to keep, but no, there's nothing significant.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had is for Jeff. It looks to me, it's pretty clear that the doorway and the left window are not even in the original locations, and the windows look more contemporary. Are they contemporary windows?
Yes, I believe that the windows, the two windows are probably, I'm going to guess 80s. I'm not certain of that.
They look like vinyl clad or.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, are there any comments from the public? Please raise your hand and press *9. Nope.
I don't see raised hands, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Comments from the board? I'll start since no one else is. Jeff, this is for the door opening. I mean, obviously the back of this building has been modified significantly since the middle of the 20th century. So there's nothing historic there that you'd be changing. You know, if you wanted to put an addition back there, I think we'd probably allow something like that. So cutting a big opening and putting a modern door in there, I can't see a problem with that at all. And I have no concerns with the landscape plan. I mean, yeah, it looks like you're on the right track as far as I'm concerned. But I'm only here for one more month, so I'm not sure I really count.
We just recorded that.
I'll jump in and say that considering where it is on the it's not a prominent elevation from the road. It's not an intervention in the most historic part of the house or impacting a character defining feature of the house, the historic house. And this wing was never a distinctive architectural element. It was always very utilitarian, and it's been fiddled with. I'm fine with the intervention, and I love the boldness. And I love the fact that you're not trying to create something that's phony.
Yeah, I support the project. I think it looks great and a really elegant approach, and the landscape plan seems well on its way. I don't see any issues with it regarding our guidelines.
I support it as well. My only concern was the sort of seems there's two additions, I guess, but I think the fact the roof line steps down helps that still read. So at first I was concerned that the new opening kind of spread across both of the additions, but having the step in the roof line shows the development of the house. Like it.
Like others, I'm supportive as well. I'm just curious about how that opening will look. And we do have guidelines about new openings. Seen just a suggestion that it might be a sliding glass. Some of the just examples you've given of existing properties where this has been utilized just show sort of plate glass with no movable portion. I just wondered if you could give us a little bit more idea about what the owners are looking to do.
Sure. I apologize. I should have included it. If Robert, you're in a Googling mood, could you Google Skye, SKYE, sliding doors, I believe. Sherry, they make a frameless sliding door, basically plate glass, and they are beautiful. And I think that's ultimately, yeah, SKY. I guess it is Skye frame. There you go. Very minimal and really exquisite, and that would be our goal. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
questions for us? Either you or Jeff or Anna?
I'm going to assume that you might like a similar approach taken with the landscape, meaning perhaps not brick or more modern materials, or what are your feelings on that?
Oh, Breck disappeared. Perfect timing.
Sorry, is it a vote? I had to run away for a second.
Did you hear the question, Breck? Or
No, no, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I said as we approach the landscape and start to develop this a bit further, shall I assume that you all might prefer a slightly more modern approach to the rear as well? Or because there's not really there wasn't really any historic landscape going on in the rear, are we open to look at brick or other materials like that?
We don't have a lot of guidelines that would, box you in, I think, for a landscape like this, unless there was more knowledge about any of the, very character defining features that would have been part of that landscape. The palette is encouraged to be native and of course non-invasive, but I think that you have the ability to design that in keeping with the approach that you guys are having with the house. So I think both a contemporary approach or something more maybe historic related. I think I guess maybe one concern is inventing some kind of history that for this house that we just don't know about, but I don't think that's probably your approach anyway.
No, and I think just cleaning it up will make a huge difference, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay.
But if you have any questions along the way, you can also reach out.
That's great.
I don't have any questions. We got the feedback that I think we were hoping for, and we appreciate. Again, I appreciate the board allowing us to come here and run these ideas by you before we dive in head first. And so I'm excited by the reception, and I think our clients will be too. So I guess, officially request a deferral.
I'll move to accept that deferral.
I'll second it.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and call a vote. Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Lehendro,
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Zemer,
Aye.
Mr. Edwards,
Aye.
and Mr. Gastinger.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is unanimous.
Jeff and
Thank you
Anna,
all.
thank you for bringing it to us. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to look at it.
Well, thanks for your time and the input. We appreciate it. We'll be back.
Yes. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Jeff will be back.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't leave. Don't let him leave the building.
So if we're ready are we ready to power through for 946 Grady? I know that Joshua Batman is online and he represents this project.
Good evening, Chair and members of the board.
Okay. My staff report. Hold on a sec. Okay, so this is COA request for 946 Grady Avenue. This is the Dairy Central project, formerly the Monticello Dairy Building. It is an individually protected property. It was constructed between 1937 and expanded over the years into 1964. As you all know, you previously reviewed a lot with this. This is the phase one project, the front historic structure. Over the last several years, and this request is to install over the 14 windows on the exterior facade to install gas-powered infrared heaters, and they would be mounted on the masonry above the selected window openings. And there are 11 on the north facade, which is facing Grady Avenue, and 3 on the west facade, which faces 10th Street. As the staff report lays out, I had difficulty with this one. It's not something staff can recommend support for. This is permanently altering a facade that you all, in fact, had awarded the contractor and developer for the work that they did on this building as a preservation project. We've seen all over the city and particularly downtown mall the use of the portable heaters that can be removed. These are to be used only seasonally, and then certainly only when it's cold. And so the other remainder of the year, they're simply a mechanical device installed on the exterior of the building. The individual heaters are mounted with 2 anchor brackets hold it. They'll be anchored into the masonry, and then to power each unit, there's a gas line, a gas conduit line has to come out through the wall, and also the wall is penetrated for the conduit for the electrical supply. And as I noted in the staff report, I mentioned this to you all at the October meeting, and just wanted to see what your thoughts were, and just sort of summarizing it was that the question was asked about why wall-mounted heaters in lieu of the portable heaters, and Joshua can certainly address it, but that it would be portable heaters would be inconvenient and difficult to deal with. So however, should you all the BAR consider approval of the request, we do recommend some conditions of approval. Excuse me. One, that the heaters will be installed above the brick arches, and I believe that's shown, but that is, they don't interfere with in any way the arches above the windows and openings. That the wall penetrations for the mounting brackets and conduits will be within mortar joints to the extent possible. We deal with this with signage. In fact, I recently had a question very central about the signage. So you can make a hole in the mortar, but repairing a hole in the brick itself, it begins to causes deterioration of the brick if it's not sealed up over time. And so we just really want to. I know I'm saying it, encouraging it. It's difficult to enforce, but stressing that any penetration of the wall for the anchors be done into the mortar. Similarly with the gas and electrical supply, and that would be the conduits, the junction boxes, etc. I want to make sure we cover all the bases. A lot of times you'll see an electrical junction box get cut into the wall, and then so if a conduit's going to come through, or if there's going to be an electrical junction box, we need to know. We need to know where they're going to go, and that the building permit application will indicate the specific locations of each heater and where the wall penetrations are to be, and that the for the supply conduits and connections, that they are done individually at the location of each heater and not come through the wall and run down the exterior facade. So that was a little difficult to word. I hope it makes sense, or my intent is clear there. And then a final condition of if and when the heaters are no longer used, in the sense of they're not in operation anymore, that they will be removed, and then masonry walls were repaired in accordance with the ADC design guidelines. And so, as I said, this is not something I can find a way to recommend support for, and that. But if you do, I hopefully make clear my recommendations. So, do you have any questions for me? All right.
Mr. Batman, I can go ahead and scroll down to your presentation if you care to add any comments.
Sure. Yeah, this is definitely a utilitarian request. It's something that our vendors have requested, and I understand it's not the most popular from a historic preservation context. The temporary gas heaters can be expensive and difficult for the staff to set out and take down and lock up every evening. And that's the genesis of this request. So, I think Jeff has pretty accurately described where they go and what we're requesting. We did try to pick colors that sort of tied into the theme of the dairy and planters and stuff that we have outside. So, I mean, other than that, I unless there's questions, I think it's pretty clear what we're asking for. And, I understand your reservations. So.
Thank you, Mr. Batman.
All right. Well, are there any questions from the public? Please raise your hand or press *9.
I don't see any raised hands, Mr. Chair.
All right. Questions from the board? So they're mounted, it looks like they're, maybe a foot or 18 inches off the wall. Is that they're kind of on little arms that stick out? Is that correct?
Yeah, they've got little arms. Yeah.
Okay.
The installation schematics in the should be in the bottom of the last page.
Yeah, I'm just confirming that they're, some of the picture didn't show the arms. So I just wanted to confirm.
I'm curious, how far would the heat supposedly reach from the heaters out onto the patios?
That's difficult to say exactly based on wind and that kind of thing. I mean, it would reach out probably around 10 feet out into the space. It's in an effort to try to bring more life to that patio or give more room rather to the market during the colder months.
But still, there'd be part of the patio that would not be heated as well. You'd have to have portable heaters in any case if you were going to use that portion of the patios, or is the intention to heat the whole area?
The intention is to moderate the temperature outside so that people feel more comfortable eating out there, during a longer portion of the colder season.
All right. Well, are there any comments from the public? Please raise your hand or press *9.
I don't see any comments.
Okay. Comments from the board. Okay. No one wants to jump in. I will.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. I do see a raised hand from the public. Lisa Kendrick, I see that your hand is raised. I will allow you to talk, and then you'll need to unmute yourself.
Hi, I was just wondering, is it noisy?
It shouldn't be terribly noisy. I mean, it's like any gas heater. So, I mean, you might hear like a little bit of that whoosh from the gas coming out and burning, but I don't think it wouldn't be like loud mechanical noise or something.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Kendrick.
Breck.
Thanks. This has been such a fun project to work on over the years. I think we all feel really glad for the care that was taken to restore and preserve this building. It's an interesting one. It's been, I think it seems to be a very successful change in addition to the city. I think learning about this building and its early design recognition as an early industrial building and its site design led us to appreciate that front long facade, the regular openings, and it has shined in the way that it has been restored. So I think it really is hard to see how this proposal doesn't jeopardize that restoration, and I can't support it. I think looking further to our guidelines and to the Secretary of Interior standards, there are several points about not adding mechanical system to that radically change, damage, or destroy the character defining features, and installing systems or ducts that cause damage to historic building materials or character defining features. And I think it's very clear that that long facade is one of the primary ones. So unfortunately, I can't support this.
Yeah, thank you. I totally understand.
I just wanted to add that we do, so Breck mentioned things from the Secretary of Interior standards. We actually do have guidelines in our wonderfully organized set of guidelines in a really weird spot under site design. There's utilities and other site appurtenances, and it talks about not, there's nothing about exterior heaters, but, screen utilities and other site elements with fences, walls, and plantings, encourage the installation of utility services underground. Antenna and communication dishes should be placed in inconspicuous rooftop locations, not in the front yard. Screen all rooftop mechanical equipment with a wall. Plan location of overhead wires, utility poles, meters, electrical panels, antenna, trash containers, and exterior mechanical units where they're least likely to detract from the character of the site. So basically the spirit of it is anything mechanical shouldn't be on the front wall.
I get it. This, like I said, it is a very utilitarian request, and I totally understand your concerns.
You have a job to do. So do we.
And
that's right.
And I agree with what's been said. I don't know that we need to pile on, Josh, but I can't support it. It's a permanent intervention. It's incompatible, and it's also just quite obvious. It jumps out, especially not being at every window, only a few and scattered. And then to think it's being asked because it's a little inconvenient for the staff to deal with portable heaters. I think the historic building and preserving it is worth a little bit of inconvenience.
Yeah, understood.
Anybody want to make a motion? Or I will do it.
I will.
Thank you, Jody.
Okay, having considered the standards set forth within the city code, including the ADC district design guidelines, I move to find that the proposed exterior heaters do not satisfy the BAR's criteria and are not compatible with this individually protected property. And for the following reasons, the BAR denies the request as submitted. And those following reasons are permanent intervention, damage to the historic structure, and its non-compliance with our guidelines.
Second.
I will call a vote. Mr. Bailey,
What's the denial would be yes in this case, correct?
you support the motion, yes.
I support the motion.
Mr. Lehendra,
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Zemer,
Aye.
Mr. Edwards,
Aye.
and Mr. Gastinger.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thanks, Josh. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it.
Hey, glad Ron asked that. I remember long ago when I started my other previous career, I was asked after a couple meetings, asked, well, how did they vote? And I said, well, they voted to approve it. And it was like, well, did they vote to approve or did they vote to deny the approval? I learned very quickly that the wording of the motion matters. So
Yeah.
not a very good parliamentarian.
Well, thank you all. I appreciate it. Hopefully we'll have a more interesting proposals in the future.
All right, Josh, it's gorgeous over there, and I just keep hearing great things about it. So my wife took me out to dinner, and I took her out to dinner the other night for our anniversary, and we went there. So it's very pleasant. I missed McGrady's and the double cheesesteaks, but it's a nice place over there. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Are we
Next
good to
up,
keep
are y'all
moving?
ready?
Does anybody need a break? Okay. Nope.
I
Let's
see
go.
that we have Caitlin Schaefer online for 111 to 115 West Main. So I think we can go ahead and move forward with that.
All right. So we have before us is a excuse me, a COA request for 1151 or 115 West Main. It's also known as 113 West Main. That is in the downtown ADC district. The project is a storefront alteration. This structure it's known as the Feuchtenberger building. Breck, your German might have some corrections for me on how the pronunciation, but was constructed sometime 1913, 1914. It is a contributing structure in the downtown ADC district. The four-bay duplex store with apartments above. The facade, and this would be the storefront facade, was altered in the early 1990s. Excuse me. And this is a request to rehabilitate the facade, and that would be the entire facade, including the replacement of the storefront. And what that involves is and Caitlin and I had some good conversation understanding what was the details of this. So the windows above, and this is two, you can see it, the two storefronts, and then there's an entry in the middle. So this is that entire length. So you've got the run of 4 double windows, and then another run of 4 double windows. So those windows will remain. What the work being done there is there are pretty sure stone sills and headers that were wrapped with metal and wood. So the hope is that the stone is still in good shape to uncover those and repaint those, bring those back. If not, then I think that the idea is to put something back like what is there now, covering them. And on the lower, at the storefronts, remove what is a later alteration. Now the glass itself will remain, but it will be that awning that you see across the front there, replacing with something that's framed in cedar and standing seam copper roof. So it looks like a lot's going on, but it's a lot going on in terms of removing something that alterations were done probably in the last 20, 30 years. So we fully support this. And I asked about you can see my clarification that Caitlin offered, what was being done with the windows, and they're staying. And so, we recommend approval. Any questions for me?
Caitlin, I know you've joined us, so if you care to offer a presentation, I can scroll through your application.
Great. Good evening. As you have probably walked by this building, you've noticed the canopy and a few pieces are in need of some restoration and a little bit of a facelift. So we began by looking at some historic storefronts and the historic images that were included in our proposal, and have decided to take the approach of stripping back as much as possible, exposing the original building, and then taking different pieces throughout the historic images and applying them in a new way today. We're hoping to keep it pretty simple so that the few more decorative items that are on this building stand out. As Jeff mentioned, the window sills and headers were covered at some point, and we're not sure why. We're hoping that what's underneath is in good condition and we can expose it. If we, do some demolition and realize that they're just not able to be exposed, we'll probably keep what's there, which is a metal surround, and paint it the matching simply white color. We have introduced a traditional cornice that runs the whole length of the storefront. Currently, there's two kind of blocks on either side, and the middle door just isn't addressed. So we're hoping that having the piece come all the way across, it makes it a little bit more cohesive. We're keeping the wood storefront that's there. It's in good condition, and I think it's a pretty nice, polite statement to the storefront. So we're just going to stain it a bit of a darker color. It's got some red to it right now, and so I'm hoping by taking that red out of the stain and making it darker, it'll contrast a little bit more to the brick. The existing canopy is probably in the worst condition, so we're going to strip that back and keep the beams that are there. Those beams do span from the exterior to the interior space, so we're going to keep them, but they feel oversized to me. So by introducing more of an overhang with the roof and a true fascia, we're hoping that those beams read a little bit less tall. And then lastly, we're gonna do a standing seam copper roof. We're hoping that it pops off the white surround that we have. And the tile on the different entrances, that red tile's in pretty bad shape as well. And we're hoping to do a thin set brick floor so that the brick on the wall kind of extends into that store space. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, are there any questions from the public? Please raise your hand or press *9.
I don't see any raised hands.
Okay. Questions from the board? I have a question. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to the right drawing. So you said you're keeping the wood storefront, but the trim that goes around it and for the new cornice will be painted. And I think somewhere I read in the notes that was going to be wood. Is there a reason that I mean, wood's fine, but is there a reason you guys aren't using something more permanent like fiber cement, or is that even? And maybe I'm crazy in bringing that up. It just seems like it might be a little more durable.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I think we would like to use a more composite material. I sent, let's see, like a 5-pon material, I think would probably be best and last longer. So that would be the hope. It's just making sure that it ties in nicely with that wood storefront too. But that would be ideal to use a more composite material for the trim.
Are there any comments from the public? Please raise your hand or press *9.
I don't see any comments.
Okay, comments from the board? I find this perfectly approvable. I think it's you guys have done a nice job. Just start there. Jody, thank you.
A delayed question for Caitlin, sorry. But you got me thinking, Carl.
Mm-hmm.
Caitlin, are you trying to replicate an historic condition by putting this cornice back?
Yeah, that is correct. It's something that is shown in a couple of the historic images, and then yes, it would be to match a more historic piece, more historic feel.
But yet you don't have the details of what that cornice looked like actually up close, like the moldings, and that's what Carl's question got me thinking is, I expect Fripon doesn't have the particular kind of moldings that would have been on this building originally.
I specified a couple different moldings on that section. So those are the moldings that we would like to use. I don't know if they're historically accurate.
Well, and I expect that you don't probably, if it's just based upon the photographs I've seen, there's nothing close enough to really know exactly what was there. Okay, I'm just thinking, I almost wish that, I worry about trying to replicate something that we don't have enough information about. And again, this is that false historicism that we've pushed against. I almost would rather see something that was obviously a little different, and thus not give the not try to fool someone to think that to say that this is the historic condition. Okay, let me give this some thought.
Jody, if it's of any help, look at the I think it's page 186 of our packet. I don't think that what they're proposing looks at all like what was originally there.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if that helps or hurts.
No, it helps.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I had the same, that was my only concern too. This has got kind of just a simple, almost just a crown molding that runs across. And you got to imagine that the actual opening does kind of go right up to that bottom line structurally, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she's kind of got panels, little framed out panels,
right,
that drop,
so
drop below that.
That's
which is kind of almost, sorry, go ahead, Jody.
That's completely different than, yeah.
I thought I saw a transom window behind the funny window over top of the door, but it wouldn't show, it wouldn't be there if this little pedimented entry was the earlier version, unless that's just boxed out. But yeah, I think there's no way to know what this looked like before, because those earlier images are too far away. So
okay.
Yeah, I think the design was more a nod to a historic storefront and not an effort to replicate what originally was there.
Okay.
Actually, what you're proposing looks very clean and elegant as well. It doesn't look doesn't look historic in the way that Jody was concerned about. I think it actually looks pretty good.
Good, I can support it.
And it certainly is nothing like the 1974 photograph that we have of those storefronts in the middle entrance. I support it.
Likewise.
I don't have any beef. Looks good.
Who's got the motion?
Just to add on to the my comment about the using something synthetic being okay, just make sure that whatever you do use, so it looks like you're taking some stuff all the way down to the mall, just make sure it's durable.
I can make a motion. All right. Having considered the standards set forth within the city code, including the ADC district design guidelines, I move to find that the proposed facade rehabilitation and storefront alterations for 111 through 115 West Main Street satisfies the BAR's criteria and is compatible with this property and other properties in the downtown ADC district, and that the BAR approves the application as submitted.
Second.
Oops, beat me.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and call a vote. Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Lehendra?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Gastinger?
Aye.
Ms. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
and Mr. Zemer.
Aye.
Thank you all. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Nice job.
All right, we got one more item. Keep moving, or anyone need a break?
Keep moving. Gating time's coming up.
I know that Jeff is still online. I can go ahead and pull up the application for 612 West Main, or the status report.
Yeah, so and I'll just deviate slightly from what's in the staff summary, but this is a discussion, kind of a project update that the applicant requested for the project that is being called 612 West Main. It is in the West Main Street ADC district. It is the existing garage service station that's there is non-contributing, and as you know, part of the demolition of that, or part of the project's demolition of that, and it's not subject to BAR review. There was a special use permit approved by City Council some time ago. I see I have a date wrong in there, but the last time this came to you all, remember this was one of the first. Well, it was the first project where we've tried out the large scale project review in the absence of the ability to do the incremental COAs. We established where applicants would have to be an understanding of you know, the iterative process, and that things would have to come as a formal request, but and discussion could be had with BAR offering input with an understanding that at the end the applicant would be requesting a deferral. That's not the case tonight, and I just really want to be clear about that. That's what we had done. I think the last time we looked at this was in February. This is Jeff didn't bring this forward as one of a scenario like that. So I don't want to dissuade conversation or discussion, but I'm treating this as the applicant has asked to just sort of bring everybody up to speed where they are and, you know, where they see things heading. And really my recommendation would be that that's not become a conversation where you all are making recommendations or offering consensus perspective. We did, Robert and I, you know, knowing this is a project that large scale project people are aware of, we did circulate notice letters as usual, and we did post a sign so people are aware of it. But you know, we also made clear that it was an update. So I hope my expression of what this is makes sense. So the staff report is really there was just to offer you guys some background on where the last time we had the conversation. No action is going to be taken, and also the understanding that come January, we will have a somewhat very new Board of Architectural Review. So, but again, just if you've got questions that you're really itching and you're curious about, absolutely go ahead and ask. But as far as I think getting into a discussion of are they heading in the right direction, or what do you think of this or that, I don't think that that's appropriate for how we've presented this to the community. So do you have any questions for me on that? All right.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's all right.
So, I mean, if it's just an update, I mean, Jeff could have emailed this to us. So why I'm confused that why did you present it to the community that it's only like what's the I'm trying to understand why we shouldn't have a conversation.
This was a concern, you know, back in the days when we all had human interaction. We talked about how step back. I'm simply making a request. I'm making a suggestion so that we're clear on that. But the point being is that we were concerned, and this Robert raised this 2 years ago, that by the other process where we knew there was going to be a deferral request at the end, and it was treated as a formal design review. And the thought was, well, gosh, remember we said, well, can we just do a series of preliminary discussions and then get to where they submit for the final COA? That sort of, the concern there was, well, then that you get down to where you're advertising for that COA, and you've already made a lot of decisions and a lot of input has been given. So we didn't want to at any time have the community think that they were not involved in the process. So that's why I'm making clear that this is different from those others. Yet at the same time, you know, people may, because they're aware of this and they want to follow, if they want to comment on it, we wanted to still give them the opportunity. But again, to make clear that we're not looking at this as a dialogue with the applicant, but still want to not let the community feel like they were left out of the loop. Is that?
I guess it just seems like what a waste of time for the applicant. But we can let Dreyfus present and we can go on.
Isn't this, I mean, this is going live. The community, if they want to know about it, could be here to talk about it now, right? I mean, we are all here talking in front of people, presumably.
So they were just like any other project that, you know, for a typical preliminary discussion, for a pre-application conference, we don't send out notification letters. But once something becomes live, once it becomes a formal request, when it comes to you all for action, we put a sign up on, there's probably 100 of them still up all over town. We post a sign that says, on this date, there's this meeting, talk about this. And we send a letter per code. I think this one, Robert had like 12 addresses we had to send it to. So it's not a letter to everyone in the city. It's to the folks that we are by ordinance required to notify. So we just, out of just an abundance of caution, just wanted to not let anybody think that there was a review occurring and they weren't notified of it. But I'm letting you now, you know, verbally, you know, the distinction between what this is as an update and how we would normally treat something that comes with BAR. And I'm sorry, it makes perfectly crystal clear sense in my head. I'm sorry, I'm not articulating it.
Well, why don't we let Jeff talk and tell us what the update is?
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Robert, if you would also allow Ann Prey, our landscape architect, in. I'll ask Ann to speak in a few minutes as well.
Sure. Would she have Whitney Hudson's link, do you think?
I don't think so, but you might give that a try. We can.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see Ann. I only see Whitney in the queue. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Well, I'll dive right in. So it's been 6 months since we updated you all on the project, and a lot has happened. We've signed on with Barton Mallow Construction. We've gotten a lot of good pricing feedback. I don't think any of the changes that we'll talk about, or the development actually that we'll talk about tonight, were greatly affected by that, but it took us offline for a few months while we made that change and were clear about where we stood from a budget and schedule standpoint. I will say, I'll preface this by saying we have been coming to the BAR with the updates in order to get, I guess I'll call it incremental guidance and input, with the expectation that by the time we ask for approval, there won't be any surprises on anyone's part. So I'm not sure I followed exactly what you were saying, Jeff. I would encourage the board to speak as freely as you are comfortable about what we'll show you tonight, because frankly, we will hopefully come to you next month to ask for approval. And one of the things I would appreciate hearing at the end of this discussion is, what else will we need to show to be able to get approval We hope to start construction in February. So December approval will ensure that we can do that with an early release package. Now, there will still be lots of details yet to iron out, but the overall design will be set and we'll be ready to go. And so hopefully we will be able to get whatever conditional approval we need, understanding that we may need to come back with color samples and even window samples if that's the case. But that is our goal here. So I don't think there are going to be any big surprises here. I'll run through the update, and then there were comments at the last meeting, and we'll try to address some of those in what we present here. So based on that, again, this is just a bit of repeating the history of how we got to the design that we're at, and that is trying to break the mass of the building up into components. That green bar is really the size of the Albemarle Hotel across the street. So you can see that we're relating in size and scale to what's already here. If we keep going, this is a plan that you all have not seen before. And certainly it's not necessarily something that you have purview over, but we thought it would be helpful to explain a little bit about what's happening on the interior of the building and internally with 600 West Main Street, the building to the east that we recently completed. You can see here that the lobby, the residential lobby for the new project is curvilinear and will have a relationship and open out onto the courtyard of 600 West Main Street. That's not necessarily an important issue here, but what is interesting and important is the curvilinearity of the lobby itself. And you will see on the exterior elevation now, this is something that's different. We alluded to it in our last meeting, but hadn't really developed it completely. But that the curvilinear form makes its way out to that area that's labeled as the plaza. And it exposes itself only on that part of the elevation. We'll also explain a little bit that curvilinearity is part of the plaza plan, but previously we had some rounded planters that seemed a bit alien to the building. And so those now, the rectilinear planters that you see along the sidewalk have replaced those because the rectilinearity relates much more to the public part of the building than the curvilinear part. If we want to keep going, some of the precedents that we'd looked at before, talking about really trying to get some delineation on the building, a bit of relief to the facade, the way some of the historic buildings in downtown, it wasn't a great deal of relief, change in plane, but we're trying to emulate that directly across the street with the Albemarle Hotel in some of even the larger planes of the building. We'll keep going. We've also talked a lot about the brick and the texture of the brick, the color of the brick, and we are narrowing it down. You can see on the top right an image of a preliminary brick mock-up that we've done. This is not final. We are testing right now using one type of brick, one color brick. We've always said that was our intention, with a textured surface to delineate those planes that move back from the main facades of the building. We'll see that in the 3D development. But these are all examples of ways that we can achieve a difference in texture. And even squinting your eyes, it's a difference in tone, so that certain planes recede from others. This has been a constant and continued point of discussion with you all, so that we make sure that we get that right, so that we read the difference in planes forward and backward by the differentiation in the texture of the brick. It's that sort of subtlety, using the same material but in a different way, that we're going for here. I will say that we know we need an approvable brick mock-up to show you all and send you out to Allied Brickyard to take a look at. And we hope to have that in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We have been working on it. You can see here, we've actually been working with a variety of bricks and a variety of mortar colors. We're not exactly there yet, but as soon as we are, we'll let you know where it is to be able to go and take a look at it. But again, this is just representative, the other images of what we're trying to achieve here. The elevations have not changed much at all from what you had seen before. The residential entry lobby, you'll see that curve better in 3 dimensions than shows up in this small drawing here. But again, just as a reminder, we are stepping the scale of the building down as we go from 600 West Main to the taller block of this building, and then stepping down so that the first 3 floors come forward in those 2 different masses. And that also relates to the Holsinger building down the street to the right, and then the churches beyond. Just a more close-up detailed view of the elevation. I think it'll be much more beneficial for us to see it in 3D. The rear elevation, which is just further development of what we'd done before. Materially, the BAR had said at our last meeting that to do this in EFS would be acceptable. We are moving forward with that. You can see that the brick that will be on the north elevation and the east and west elevations is wrapping here and creating bookends, I'll call it, for the EFS on the south facade. The differentiation you see, you'll see it in the 3-dimensional views. There is a bit of relief around each of the windows in the material itself, so that it's just not one straightforward mass of EFS. The side elevations, really mostly hallways, that these are the ends of hallways, and in a couple of instances, a bedroom or 2. So I don't know if Anne has been able to join.
Anne was able to join.
Okay, great. Then I'll turn it over to Anne to talk about this landscape plan and the elevation of it.
Hi guys, thanks Jeff. So just a few things to point out here with some shifts and changes of the plan as some of the thinking has evolved. As Jeff mentioned, we have changed the planters out front to be more orthogonal and relate more to the building facade itself as well as the streetscape. We have actually also removed one of the planters, the one on the far corner of the building there is actually just going to be at grade level. So that we're really just using the planters around the stair and kind of housing the stair. We do still show one with a bench as part of the earlier design. One thing to also note in this area is that we've changed the paving material as well, just trying to develop a stronger relationship with the sidewalk to be more of just a straightforward sort of concrete surface as opposed to the really small pavers we had been showing in the earlier plan. And we have talked as a team really what the finish and coloring of that would be. And while I don't think it would be exactly the city spec, I do think it would be somewhat similar. We're still discussing kind of final finish and tone there. You can see, as Jeff was talking about too, sort of the entry into the courtyard there. We're working with keeping those curvilinear shapes there in that garden area. And now just 2 simple stone benches, as opposed to any of the other kind of earlier features we had thought were in there. We're just really looking to simplify this and keep it very clean, using the pavers here to really denote the threshold from truly that more public space into the more private space. Thinking about playing with patterning here a little bit, just to kind of start to create some movement with the pavers as they kind of work in that diagonal to pull you towards the front door and play off of the introduced shape at the lobby entry there. With the 4 street trees, we are really looking to make those as large kind of canopy trees as we can get. Right now, we're looking at a cultivar of elms, obviously from the city approved list. We haven't made a final decision there, but definitely looking to get those to be of good size to introduce those to the street. We still have our bike rack in the same location that we've shown it before. And I think actually this garden piece, with the extension of it behind there and sort of wrapping around the mural will help, I think, really connect that property from 608 over to 612, as well as being able to sort of expand that garden space and get as much planting in there as we want. I think really those are the major changes, just some of the shaping and formality of the pieces, and then some of the surface changes that I wanted to point out. I think the next page should be the elevation. So even though the planter shapes have changed, really still trying to keep as much planted area as was shown before when they were more curvilinear. So they'd be rather large and still likely custom made to try and get that size, but a little bit more straightforward with just the rectangular forms. And then if you look to the left there, you can see the main entry, and most of that planting really being in grade at that point, as again, most of the sidewalk is flush and didn't necessarily need a planter to kind of help mediate the grade there. So looking to just kind of connect that more into the garden space as well. I think that's probably a good overview at this point. Jeff, if you want to share anything else about this that I might have missed.
No, I think one topic of conversation has been the planter boxes, and we continue to show them. We are still trying to figure out how those get incorporated into the project, owner maintained, unit maintained. There are some issues with that, but it's certainly something that we continue to discuss. I think that perhaps some of the landscape will also show itself in some of the 3D views. Maybe we'll just keep going for the moment, and stays on, and we can get her input as questions come up. So one of the requests was that we show more views down the street than head-on views, because of the concern that this will read as one long continuous building. And I think that you can see here how it steps up. The darker set relief of the inset between the two larger panels of the building, the larger facades that come forward, the 3-story facades. You'll see as we move a little bit further that the differentiation between those, I think, is pretty pronounced. I think there was concern that it wasn't enough, and that the facade would read as one long continuous facade. If we go to the next image, I think you can start to see that this clearly begins to break up into two different pieces. I don't really need to belabor a lot of this. I think we'll see more images of the texture. The computer model doesn't render textures as well as we'd like them to. We've done as well as we can at the moment, again, knowing that the real test is going to be in the sample panels that we have made for you all. Now here you can begin to see the curvilinear form of the entry to the residential component of the project. I think some of the things we'd like to point out here are that the openings here have a surround on them that comes forward by a couple of inches. So the retail on the ground floor and the windows directly above those all have the brick surround that is providing some relief on the facade itself. And then the panels around the doors and windows are set back from that. You can see that. The area directly over the residential entry on the left is differentiated a little bit in that we don't have the brick surrounds there. We do have brick sills, but we don't have brick surrounds. That's a detail. As we get closer, you might be able to see. The material for the entry to the residential lobby is likely going to be plaster, a smooth plaster, mottled finish perhaps, and very quiet signage with the address on it, not even as pronounced as it reads here. Material-wise, for the other elements, we are thinking a bronze color of some sort. We need to get specific, I know, but a bronze color for both the surrounds of the storefront and the windows on the building. If we keep going. Now we start to get a little bit more close up. You can begin to see the entry there for the residential and how the two surfaces, the more textured brick there on the residential component and smoother brick on the piece that comes forward. We're also exploring using a longer brick on the piece that comes forward, not just the same regular 8-inch module. That's something that we're trying to sort through right now as well. So there may be more differentiation simply because of the size of the brick. But you can begin to see the surrounds on the windows of the piece that come forward, and that we've eliminated them on that piece directly above the residential component. We keep going. Thanks, Robert. Just a different view, but this does show the relationship to the original, one of the contributing structures at 600 West Main and the mural that's there, and start to see the planters. And I think if we keep going, you can begin to see some of the textural difference here with what we call the hyphen, that interstitial piece, and the pieces that come forward. The other move that we made that we had discussed at the last meeting that I think was favorably reviewed was where the people are standing on the upper balcony there on the hyphen. We lowered that component as well so that the two pieces that come forward are taller as well. And another view a little bit closer up of the building. The rear facade, again, just a subtle color. The ephes between brick pieces at either end, probably some gold or the bronze colored panels between terraces on that second floor and balconies up above. We're going to use a very simple railing system, probably just vertical pickets. Keep it clean, keep it quiet. And probably the last image there, just a little bit more of a close-up, you can begin to see the reveal around the windows within the ephes, again, so that we get a little bit of texture on this wall, and it's not just the back of the building. I think that's the last image, and Ann and I are happy to answer questions. As I said, we'd love your feedback. We really are going to look for approval, ideally next month, in whatever limited fashion we might need to do that. So.
Well, since I've only got 2 meetings left, I'm just going to go rogue and we're going to have a discussion. I'm sorry, Jeff. This would just be a complete.
It's your. I mean, I'm just saying. I want to be just clear with how we've perceived it, but it's your meeting and it's your call. So that I'm not done. No skin off my whatever.
Well, if you get in trouble, you can blame it all on me, because I feel like if Jeff Dreyfus wants to bring this to us for approval next month, it would be really important for us to give him some feedback. So starting with that, are there any questions from the public? Please raise your hand or press *9.
I see a raised hand. I see a couple of raised hands. I'll start with Jake Lassen. Mr. Lassen, I will allow you to talk, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak, and you'll need to unmute yourself.
Just a quick question. Are you going to have another time for the public to speak after the members?
There'll be, we'll have questions from the board, and then there'll be comments from the public. So if you have a comment about this one, yes, there'll be another time for that. Okay. There's not going to be a general public comment period for anything just not on the agenda.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
I'll wait for the next round. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the public? Please raise your hand. I don't see any.
All right, questions from the board. Okay.
Go ahead.
Can you give us an update on how
you're approaching the street trees, and that's not part of the project, is that correct? Or how I see that you have them located, but is that something that you'll be installing, or that, okay. you will.
Yes, they are a requirement by the city. And as we mentioned at the last meeting, if we were to try to place them where the master plan for West Main Street shows them, they'd be out in the public right of way. So
Right.
we can't do that. So they are required by the city.
Okay.
And I guess on top of that, there's in the renderings, I see the tree that's, I don't know if it's on the 600 property line or if it's on this project's property. It's kind of on the corner right there. That's going to remain, correct?
And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that is correct.
Okay. So
Is that one you saw in the model
rendering.
views? I think it might be that Zelkova that's there
Yes.
existing. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So there's currently 6 Zelkova, I guess maybe 5.5 that are on this site. I don't know if that one must straddle the property line. So you're going to be taking out 5 trees, leaving 1 existing one and putting in 4 new ones, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make that. That's all right. Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
No, that's fair.
All right. Comments from the public. Please raise your hand or press *9.
Again, I see a raised hand from Mr. Lassen. I will allow you to talk again.
Thank you. I just, so I live in 600 West Main, and I just moved into the building and saw the posting. Thanks, Jeff. And just wanted to raise concern for my project, this project, living in this building for only a few weeks. There's quite a bit of small issues and large issues, and I feel like this might not be the right venue for some of them, but I mean, I joke with my friends, if any more corners were cut, I'd be living in a circle. Like rooms are already starting to droop. The building's only 2 years old. Floors aren't level. Windows can't open because of many reasons. So I'm just wondering, with this drastic change in approach, there might not be as many lessons learned, and material mistakes are going to be made in the new building.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lassen. If there are any other comments from the public, please raise your hand.
You said there were multiple hands that went up.
I see another one from
Okay.
Jeffrey Erkelins. I will allow you to talk, and you'll need to unmute yourself.
Hi, this is actually Joey Conover, Jeff's wife. I co-opted his iPad mid-meeting, so I apologize. We live at 310 6th Street Southwest, which is a couple blocks behind this building in Fifeville, and frequently walk up 5th Street to West Main. And I just wanted to put a plug in about the back side of the building and make sure it's just not forgotten. No building will be ever built up against it because of the railroad track. And so I just want to make sure that I didn't quite understand what Jeff was saying, Dreyfus, about the EFIS, or what, if that was the name, I'm not familiar with that word, just what the material was on the backside. I don't have a particular opinion about it. I just don't want it to be blank and forgotten. My other comment was just also related to the public area on the front sidewalk, which I'm not sure is relevant to the project exactly, but the planters look very nice, but I see one of them has a bench on it, and I would just encourage more public seating to be included in the project if there's any way that could be encouraged. I'm glad to see that there's that little foyer public, I'm going to call it a public area. It looks like it's accessible before the apartment entrance. When the other building was built, I was excited about the courtyard that was built, and then a private fence was put up. And I think anything that can just make it feel a little more of a public space is appreciated. And also, I just wanted to say I appreciated the front facade, all the recessing that you have around the windows. I think does a really nice job of breaking up the facade. I think that's a nice design. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Joey.
Can I just answer regarding the material, EIFS, exterior insulation and finish system. It's a technical phrase for synthetic stucco.
More comments, Robert?
Yeah, if there are any additional comments from the public, please raise your hand and I will allow you to talk. I don't see any additional raised hands.
Okay. I guess to respond to that, the first comment, I mean, our purview is just the exterior of the building. And of course, I think we want it to be long lasting and durable. And I'm sure Jeff Dreyfus does too. So I'll just let that sink in with him. I think he heard that loud and clear. So board, yeah, I guess let's give Jeff some feedback. Is he on the right track? Is he what would he need to bring to have a complete packet for approval? Correct, did I see you raise your hand? Yep.
Yeah, I'll just make a couple of comments. I still think that, this building, one of the biggest things is getting this brick right. And I know that you guys know that too. I'm looking at the images again. I think I do like the approach with using the texture. I think that could be really fun and is a way to break it up. I still think there could be more color differentiation in the hyphens than if it's intended to be the same brick, which it looks like it is. But I think the main thing that I'm concerned about is looking at the image of the preliminary brick mock-up on page 4, is that the brick that's selected there is really uniform, extremely uniform and cold, and I feel like it looks pretty institutional, maybe a concrete brick. And I'm just very concerned about what this times the entire facade starts to look like. It's going to be very bright, very plain, and it doesn't have the same kind of modeling and life that the other examples that you share show. Even the model, even the digital model, it shows a lot of subtle modeling and color variation within the brick, which I'm afraid we're not going to get based on that mock-up. So I would certainly encourage investigating, if that's the brick, some a mixture of some subtle tonal variation. I'm just concerned this is going to be very bright white, kind of blinding, and not the effect that you want.
If I could jump in, Breck, we felt the same way about the brick, so we are looking at a different brick.
Great. That was easy.
Excellent.
If no one else is jumping in, I made a little list of things that I'd like to see. You've got a lot of thin brick, and I think we've talked about this a little bit. And so I'd like to see an installation detail, or at least an installation cut sheet, something from the manufacturer for how you, because it looks like you're using that for field brick on the upper levels, as well as using it for the recesses in the windows. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Sure.
So you may have two different installation methods, and I guess our guidelines, I'm saying this like I remember exactly, but I thought there was something in there about not using thin brick, and the idea behind that, although not written in the guidelines, my understanding was the glue-on brick, that it has a tendency to fall off. So I think if you're going to use that around the window surrounds, maybe that's the way it happens, almost like it's adhered like tile, but I think we'd want to see something more for where it's used as a field brick. At least I would.
Yep.
On your drawings, said it's EFS, you labeled it stucco, just label it EFS so that it's it's
Thank
on
you.
there.
Yep.
I'd love to see some plan details for the recesses and things, or section details, just something to just give us a dimension. The renderings look fantastic, and I'm sure your computer model is accurate, but it just would be nice to have some sort of, this is actually what it's going to be. It's going to be recessed 2 inches or 4 inches, or it looks like actually quite a bit in your renderings. You probably don't have an answer yet, but if you've got a plan for the power lines, I'd love to see that in the drawings. If they're going to be there, they're going to be there. If they're not, they're
Well,
I guess just let us know if
we did talk about this. I think we have to go on the assumption that they will ultimately be there. They will be relocated during construction, as we did at 600 West Main. But we don't really have any control over Dominion Power at this point, and they'll have to be put back where they are. That's the unfortunate reality.
Showing that existing tree on the landscape plan, I think there was a little bit of, some plans show it, some didn't. So just it's there and it's staying. The steps in the front, you come all the way up to the property line where you've got the 2 steps up, and you're probably going to need some handrails at some point. Will those, I don't think they're allowed to extend over the sidewalk, the public sidewalk. So just kind of, maybe I'm raising an issue that doesn't make sense, but if that sounds right, maybe just take a look at it and make sure you're not, and if whatever railings you intend to use, let's see those on the drawings as well.
Okay.
That's my I guess the other thing is, with those trees, you said they're required, said the city requires them. I'm going to suggest that the board put some wording in the motion that really locks them in there. So I guess just be prepared for that. Because I at this point, I don't fully trust the city with the site plan process. I mean, with 600 West Main, and then with the code building, we've had some site plans that get changed at the very, very last minute, and it would be so I just be prepared for that. That's my list. I think the projects, I think you're moving in a great direction. I'm very, very happy with what I'm seeing, and think it's compatibility with West Main, with the guidelines. I think it's you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Related to this, the trees, did I hear that they are going to be Zelkova going back in, or is there an opportunity to select a species that would be more in keeping with the West Main strategy?
I'm actually really trying to use a elm cultivar instead of using a Zelkova, like actually using a Valley Forge, or what's the other one? The Princeton. It's not Princeton. But yeah, maybe it's Princeton. Yeah, but no, I really want it to be in keeping with a true canopy size tree that can work on the street still, and I'd like it to have that vase shape, because I think it would really open up well against the way the building is too. But yeah, we haven't not finalized that as a team, but that's what I'm looking at.
Well, I love that direction, and I don't know what is planned in this area in the street plan, but it might be worth checking.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I think it's actually, I know 4 doesn't sound like a lot, but I actually think it's great opportunity to get 4 trees along Main Street. So like a good size, I think would be awesome. So I'm looking forward to it. So I'm with you, Carl. I'm with you.
If you guys, that was just confirming numbers. That was all that
totally. No, I get it.
What you're going to do is you're going to prepare a very good hole for these trees so that they thrive for many, many years to come. So they'll be better than the 5 Zelkova that we have.
Yes. Yep.
although they'll be topped at 20 feet when they reach the power lines.
I know. Jeff's gonna take care of that, right? Jeff Dreyfus will take care of that.
Yeah, I'll come out and trim them myself.
Just a request, I'd like to see detail on the railings for the front and south facades.
Okay, sure.
Curious what the materials will look like. There is a lot of railing. Thank you for including those spaces.
So if you guys are doing an expedited sort of construction schedule where you start construction before the drawings are done, does that mean that you will have a site plan that's done fairly soon?
Yes, we will have, we hope to have an approved final site plan in early January. We are, we're moving ahead under that assumption. And it's been a very slow process with the city. Very slow, but that is the plan. We will start footings and foundations digging as soon as we can after that. So as I said, you know, we will not be, we won't have completed final everything, construction documents down to the nth until probably sometime in early April. So we've got the opportunity to make adjustments if we need to, things like colors and all of those sorts of things as we move forward, but that's the plan.
I'm just wondering, when you bring this in for final approval from us, do you think you might have some concept where the fire hydrants and, you know, water lines and anything that
oh sure, we've got
might end up?
Yes.
yeah, we can show you all of that.
Okay.
It is on the plans. It's all pretty clear and pretty finalized. It's just a matter of inching its way through the city process right now. So if you like, we can include as part of that next submission the site plan as it currently stands.
Okay, that would be great. And again, I'm just worried about the trees again. Sorry, but yeah, it would be good to know where all that stuff is going if you have that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Anything else, or they're going to come back and it's, you know, if you don't say it now.
I think it's come a long way since we first saw it. So thank you for all your hard work.
I think it's going in the right direction.
So no motion is needed because this wasn't, this was just a discussion. Do you guys have questions for us?
At the moment, I'm good. We need some good brick panels. That's what we need. That's clear, and some details.
I guess just occurred to me, since Tim isn't here, however you plan to light this, that would be good to know.
It's going to be very, very subtle. And we may not have a final lighting plan for that submission, and hopefully it's something that we could come back to you with in the future.
All right. Talk to Jeff Warner about that.
Okay. Okay. Well, I don't want to have anybody sit here any longer than they have to. We've received the feedback and we thank you. We appreciate it. We will look forward to coming back and getting approval and getting this underway sooner than later. So.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all for your time.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Mr. Warner.
I just I wasn't aware that sorry, I have difficulty explaining that. I didn't expect it to be that. My apologies. But I guess, you know, just this is where there's a lot on the agenda, and it's coming at you all fast, and I just have to I don't know, I'm sitting here a little frustrated that there's things could have answered in a preliminary discussion, and I feel a little embarrassed tonight. So my,
Don't be embarrassed. But it just seems like if if they bring something as an update, I'm pretty certain they're going to want to know what we think of it.
I understand, but then we have to then treat it as, at least our opinion is to treat it then like we have with the other ones. It comes in and it's a deferral at the end, and just so that it's all consistent. It's we're I don't want to say we're making our new rules, but we're establishing how we're going to do things going forward. And I just want to make sure when I have new people up the ladder above me saying, well, how do you do this? I want to be able to at least say right or wrong, we've done it the same. So sorry. I'm
Legally, we just had a very public discussion. Anybody can see it, hear it, and it was advertised. So
that's fine. And that's and I guess apologies to Jody, because I know there were some questions he had, and I guess I got it wrong. But so quickly, I don't want to believe it. I really don't. I can't find the agenda. Robert, where are we next?
We'll need to. Are we ready to nominate the next chair and vice chair of the VAR? This is usually the November meeting where we do this for the coming year.
Yes, that's where we are.
I nominate Breck as chair, and Sherry, you said you'd be okay being vice chair. Do I remember that correctly?
I'd be okay doing it. I have no aspirations for chair, just so that's quite clear. So Breck, don't ever be absent. You can't take a meeting off.
Unless would somebody else like it?
Yeah, if anybody else wants to do it, it's completely fine with me.
I second Carl.
Okay. I will call a vote then. Mr. Bailey?
Yes, I would like Breck and Sherry to take those positions.
Thank you. Mr. Lahendra?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Last chance for somebody to write in as vice chair. We can change the vote right now.
Sherry,
campaigner.
Yeah, I was gonna say Tim had to be the chair a couple times, and he didn't set the bar very high. So
well, I have confidence. I have confidence in both nominations.
Are we still voting? I'm sorry.
Yes, Sherry. Can I get a yes from you, please?
Was I being called on?
Yes.
I guess I'll say yes.
Thank you. Mr. Gastinger?
Aye.
And finally, Mr. Zemer?
May the force be with you.
Thank you.
So is this like the presidential election where this starts in January, or is Breck taking over in December?
No, we have to have an entire presidential transition team.
Yeah.
appointed.
The inauguration takes a lot of.
And then we have to have a big
Let you guys
ball.
handle that.
Sherry has to dispute the results.
That's right. That's right. I'm not sure. Now, I believe, this may be the first year that I've done it correctly, but I believe that Breck assumes power at the next meeting and allowing, any, mentoring from the former chair to occur. So, but
This just
it
means
really
I get to misbehave next time.
yeah, I don't have your bylaws memorized, so but I
don't think
there's
in the bylaws.
it's not a statutory requirement, so you all are you sort of whatever you would like to do.
Well, thank you for that. Next on the discussion agenda were the preservation awards. I hope that the information that I sent out is sufficient to have a discussion about this. A few months ago, there were a couple of recommended nominations. I don't remember them off the top of my head. I think one included the porch at 301 East High Street, and there were some others as well.
So there's one I remembered that I actually went to my emails and searched the word wow. And it was 743 Park Street, where they removed the siding and found the, original Victorian trim and siding and whatnot. I don't know where they are in that renovation now. Like, I don't know if they're not finished enough for it to be an award, but I feel like that would be a candidate either this year or next.
I think we can do that one.
Okay.
The crazy colored.
Yeah, we just
very
saw the
bright.
intricate design and the shingles, the wood shingles. It's great.
I like
I
that
had
one.
nominated what's called the 10th and Grady Church. It's been known by a couple of things, and I got some, and I'm just trying to say this objectively, I got some negative feedback on that nomination. Some of it focused around that we don't know exactly what was done to it. What materials were used, whether it was it looks really great to me, but who knows? And I think the other part of it was a sensitivity, if I could, and Carl can, of course, talk about his objections more than I can summarize them, but a sensitivity to some uncertainty in the neighborhood about its future use and whether the neighborhood it was done by the developers of Dairy Central, which I wasn't aware of, and it's been part of that property for a while, which I also wasn't aware of. But I've always been fascinated by that beautiful little church, and then drove by, and it looks stunning what they've done to it, and it looks. I mean, I think the materials look very well done, but if it's too political, then I'll withdraw
background
it.
that
But it's kind of a special little piece of history, I think, in the city. I mean, it's a really unusual structure that's kind of held up that corner, for a long time. And it's got a lot of things that it has to deal with there. So anyway.
The background I provided was just Jeff had said he didn't know what the use was. And I just explained that it's the city has actually said that it cannot be used for anything other than a church right now. So it is it was going to have some community use, and that is not permitted. So they did get one really good event out of it, and beyond that, it's now just sitting vacant. But it is the exterior of it. They didn't change the siding, or it's just been painted. So it's been cleaned up. I don't think there's anything artificial that's been done to it. The windows are still the same windows. I think they reglazed a couple of them, but yeah.
I hope I might add that it's not an IPP, and it's also not in the historic district, so it's not actually under BAR purview. And that's not a requirement for the awards, but it is something for the BAR to be aware of.
I also belatedly was thinking about the impact of a building that's not, again, in an IPP, not in a historic district. It's actually sort of legally not in the city, or maybe somebody can correct me, but it was also completed last year, and I realized we gave out awards last year and didn't mention it, but the memorial to enslaved workers just continues to be one of the most significant things, I think, that's been done locally. And it's racked up more recognition late last year and during this year outside of our area. I know it really is right across the street from the corner district. So it does contribute to that district, even though it doesn't sit in it. I just think, if that were located downtown, it's just a significant, I shouldn't say that. It's just a significant thing that happened in the last year. And I think because of the pandemic, I just wasn't thinking about recognizing it at the time. I don't think there's any timetable on this. For instance, I think we're looking at the Quirk, and I think that may have even opened in 2020. So our rules for nomination and recognition are loose, and maybe that, if anybody else feels the same as I do, and it doesn't really fit into any of the great categories. I think it's kind of a miscellaneous, monuments category or something like that. But anyway, just another idea.
I agree with you. Oh, go ahead, Robert.
I was going to say I agree too, Greg. and that location is significant to the Underground Railroad. So I think it's important to Charlottesville as well.
Yeah, I support that, and maybe one tact to take is that, you know, even beyond the kind of the physical structure itself, it's bringing education and recognition to the built environment that was in Charlottesville. So even from that point of view, I think it is worthy of some commendation.
I would just mention that just a technicality, it's the memorial to enslaved laborers, not workers, just for the record. And I think also, as you pointed out, it's seen from the Corner Historic District, and one of the most striking features, if you're fortunate enough to see it, is the way the exterior wall is carved. In the right light, on the right day, you can see the eyes of Isabella Gibbons, who is an enslaved laborer at UVA, an important Charlottesville community member. And I think that it also, the development of that memorial took a long time and actually really engaged the Charlottesville community to help in the decision-making process. And so I think that in itself makes it a part of a bigger landscape.
I think a potential award might be an important contribution to Charlottesville's historic landscape, not under the purview by the BAR.
In my ancient history of awards, I don't think there was ever a requirement that it be individually protected in a district, anything like that. And I would strain to remember the things that we recognized at the time when I was last on the BAR, but anyway,
I mean, I think I would say it would be, I think it'd be good if the award mentioned that it was, recognizing history, that it's a marker for history more so. I mean, as Breck was saying, more so than just the actual physical artifact of the monument, but just what it, the fact that it is a monument there, recognizing the history of the enslaved laborers at UVA. Personally, I guess it was a community, a lot of community input went into that monument. I a little disappointed now it turned out, but I still think it's definitely worth nominating. Could just be the parking lot lights that they put all over around it, but it's I don't know.
They've actually taken a lot of those down and redone the lighting. I don't know if you've been by. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't been over for a couple months at least.
Okay. Yeah, no, that was definitely something that I think irked the original designers as well.
Okay.
Stadium lighting.
I have two other little thoughts. I don't know if anybody agrees. They're both other faith communities. One is I continue to be impressed by Temple Beth Israel and their commitment to design and public space, and taking what is really kind of a bad deal and turning it into something beautiful. I'm not sure if they would want that extra recognition necessarily. It might be something that we might want to ask them about if there's consensus here. But the other is Westminster Presbyterian, who did a really great thing, and without hardly any incentive and not much help other than Jeff from the city. They had to jump through a lot of hoops to do the right thing, and it was kind of amazing that they followed through with it.
That one started my first Tuesday working for the city, standing over there and talking to those folks, and then hearing that, well, the wall isn't even on their property, but they're willing to fix it, and that the option is for the city to put it back the way the city puts things back. So it was kind of, I just went feet first, and thanks, Breck, for raising that, because when I drive by it, it's like it just looks, it fits. I mean, and it just really, I hope all of you have driven by and seen it, because what it looked like, I think most of our lives, thinking, when's that thing going to fall over? But it really is fantastic, and it is an example of where we have elements within the city right of way that we need to determine how to protect them. Over near Jody's neighborhood, there was a concrete bench was, I don't even know exactly sure what happened, but just one of these elements. And again, I'm not sorry, I'm digressing from the award discussion, but just a comment on how difficult that wall project was, how long it took, and the willingness of the folks at that congregation to do the right thing. It's just a feel good story that I turn to sometimes when I need it.
Someone making a running list of all these. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
And with a thumb.
I mean, Sherry, with bringing up the 10th and Grady Church, got my wheels spinning a little bit with, and I, of course, didn't follow through on that. But I mean, yeah, if we see houses, in neighborhoods that are rapidly changing, that have been taken well care of and preserved, I think it's definitely worth recognizing them. I think Jeremy Kaplan in 10th and Page has already gotten an award from us, or from the Historic Resource Committee. But some of his buildings or his houses that he's renovated and preserved, he's done a really good job on that. There's one, on West Street that I always walk by. That's on the 700 block of West Street, and it's a I can get the address.
There's some gems buried back there, Carl, that I don't think 90% of the people in the city know are there. And what a beautiful street.
So I don't know if that's worth thinking about, maybe if not for this year, for next year. Trying to keep a list of people that are not required to preserve their houses, but do so.
So I'm hoping that Jeff Dreyfus's International Style House in Lewis Mountain neighborhood has gotten an award in the past for the work that they've done on that and the addition.
Oh, we can check. I'm not aware of an award.
Okay. I mean, it's fabulous, and it's an incredible landmark.
Again, this is an opportunity to, every year recognize what the BAR wishes to recognize. There's nothing, it's not statutory. I did find in a cabinet at work these heavy little index card size plaques, remarkably heavy, Board of Architectural Review Preservation Award, so that someone can bolt it on their house. But
Rick.
I think the malleable, something suitable for framing is a little bit nicer to be able to characterize it. I mean, I do like what you're saying about, the guy that doesn't have, or the person that doesn't have to do it, did it. Not everybody is, wealthy in this town. And one of the concerns I have is that we have a lot of historic properties where people simply can't afford it. I think I expressed that a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about just what it takes, what I can't do at my house. And I anything we could do to encourage people to the ordinary guy can do it. And so I think recognizing that's great, and we should look further. You all are charged with historic preservation kind of throughout the city. I mean, it's not your job, so to speak, but it's your advisory capacity to city council. And historic preservation is your purview. You're part of what having a BAR and having design review is part of what gives us the certified local government status. So your role is it's interesting. I had to explain it to the Historic Resources Committee that they're really just sort of, you're not just a committee, you're not just a work group. You have responsibilities and authorities. But I think, let's look far and wide. There's a lot going on in this city. I think the city needs it right now.
So we don't usually have a set, we haven't kept a set schedule for these nominations. I think if you wanted to, there's no reason you wouldn't be able to nominate properties tonight. And we could maybe have them ready by the December or January meetings to present, or we can continue to think about this a month and then make formal nominations next month. But I think that's something for the chair and the future chairs to decide.
Someone mentioned Jeff Dreyfus's property and the address, if Robert wants to look and see if it's been recognized before. It's 135 Bollingwood.
And it is quite gorgeous.
I'd like to suggest that we try to get a list for approval next month before Carl and Tim leave. I think that they just have a familiarity with these projects and it'd be difficult for new members to have that background.
Any idea when council is going to vote on appointments? I can't remember when I'll look at it.
All I know is that they are
Website.
probably only meeting once in December. I don't know if we've had any applications. You all are aware there's a BAR appeal that was filed, and I don't know when. In fact, I just got an email from the property owner, and I don't know when. There's some fluid situations in City Hall that we're still figuring out, but I don't know. And I mean, I guess I'd like to say is if we don't have new members, I'll invite the what do you call it when you're a professor emeritus, the BAR members emeritus. I don't know, are we allowed to keep them? But
we couldn't keep Mike Ball. Applications are accepted through December 10th for consideration on December 20th.
Thank you. And I should say that I'm up for appointment. So if I don't get reappointed, you guys need to find another vice chair. I might have the shortest term ever.
Oh boy. Okay. I didn't think you were I thought you were here for another year. Well, no to that.
I replaced Mike Ball 2 years of his service of his term. So
you're one of those people who can be on here for
if he'd like a woman
10 years plus your previous term from whenever that was.
And you have your 3 months of redshirting from the first the COVID spring. So
I haven't met Breck in person yet.
Right,
I haven't met Robert Edwards in person yet. Ron, I've met you previously, so you don't count. Robert Watkins, I don't think I've met you in person yet. No.
So that brings
really
up a
tall.
good point.
Yeah, Robert is really tall. You'd be surprised.
So basically what you're saying is we're going to have a Christmas party?
Right.
Yeah, so we are
at Breck's house. We'll sit in the middle of wine cellar circle and
on December
Jeff and Breck will bring suits out.
We had a pretty lame Oktoberfest, so I don't know. I don't have high hopes for, but December 4 we are is the kids in the neighborhood always make things and sell them. We have a Christmas sale thing. So
should we meet there?
Then rolls into other things.
Well, we wouldn't want to cramp your fun tradition with your neighbors, but
just I don't know. It's everyone is welcome on Wine Street. That is an absolute.
I'll carry a chair over a block and bring an extra one.
That's right.
We need to celebrate Carl and Tim and actually meet each other in person.
So we will, as far as like a formal BAR event, I'm hoping to do something in January. I believe we may be going back to live meetings in January. It'll probably be hybrid. That's been the thought, and that would be BAR members are in attendance. People that others from the public can attend remotely. We'll have to see how that goes. But I suspect, unless we see another COVID surge, that we could likely be back live in January. So, and I think everybody, and I'm learning myself, everybody there is viewed this differently. So to suggest we all get together, I don't want anybody to be uncomfortable with that. So I'm just saying, I know we all know where everyone is. We'll shoot for something in January and send Carl and Tim and everyone off,
We'll have an inaugural ball.
inaugural
in
ball.
January.
Yeah. And but to just jump to, I guess, Robert and I will put together a list of the things that, the awards and what we would call them. We'll have that at the next meeting.
Yeah.
I'll
Did we,
circulate that.
anyone have any concerns with the code building being nominated? Because I think we talked about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you all want to keep going? I don't know. Robert and I walked around there the other day. There's still stuff. There's still.
Yeah, and that's another. I was going to bring that up. Is I don't know what control you have over making them clean the exterior and the I thought that metal panels coming down to the ground would be a great idea, and I think it was a horrible idea. That metal is going to be destroyed very quickly. It's something to remember for BAR members that are staying on here. Materials that
Robert
touch
and I
the ground.
walked there yesterday. I explained to Robert what it's like, when you're a builder wrapping something up, and I certainly been around enough architects. I know when you all are wrapping something up, you see everything, and so I'm sure Fred and Greg right now are seeing everything. But they're going through their punch list, and maybe we just wait and see till that thing comes together. It's complete.
Okay.
We can discuss it next year.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. It's barely open yet.
Well, that's the funny thing about, we keep giving buildings certificates of occupancy before they're done. For the very specific reason of the Virginia Film Festival. I mean, we got in this trouble with the Violet Crown Theater. So just
I have no comment.
Yeah.
So the next on the list is just questions and some updates. And so just quickly, I just want to say to what James was addressing about, he said the bigger landscape, that's going on with what university's doing with what it's done and continues to do. You mentioned Isabel Gibbons, and Isabel Gibbons was married to Ned Gibbons, and Ned Gibbons was enslaved at Penn Park. And we have every reason to believe that his mother is in one of the unmarked graves outside the Craven section. So the connections are extraordinary. And I last Friday spoke to a church group that has been looking into these things, and they asked to go out, and we Tom Chapman and I, Tom Chapman with the Historical Society, went out. It was very moving to way I introduced the site to them was we walked around the cemetery and the family sections, and then we walked around the other side so that they could see, now here you are on the back side, opposite the entrances, outside the wall. But even people in that group names were starting to fit. And I've had calls, people have contacted me and said, well, I think I might be connected to those people. So again, when James said this bigger landscape, it really is I don't know how we get our arms around it as a community. And I just very quickly, I was on a phone call a couple of weeks ago with researchers at Clemson University who've actually they've got a database of 6,000 or 7,000 individuals enslaved there. Obviously my connection to Clemson, but it's a huge plantation and thousands of people. And so they've begin just this software that they're able to, the fragments that they have to begin to assemble, this seems to fit with this person. And and to do something like that here, would really take, and I've said it in meetings, it would take the university it would take something institutional to do that. And, we're looking at it with the Historical Society, something to do with Penn Park, and try to piece together what we know. But really, until you have to piece it all together. And when you realize the connection of folks enslaved at Penn Park to, the Gibbons family and Isabel Gibbons, and it just, we have to look at this larger. And I'll say that I'm amazed at what the amount of documentary information that's out there that allows these things to come together. I feel like I'm in, what's the guy that does the Robert Louis Gates, it's just every day. It's like I'm getting something and saying, oh, here's a connection. And I wish you all could see that part of, what we're involved in, but it's really pretty cool. So I don't know. I just wanted to add that note. Again, James, it's just that bigger landscape. I don't think, people realize how connected this community is and through sort of a time that we don't talk about enough. So the second thing I wanted to, there is a historic conservation district will probably be a recommendation or a request for the city to initiate a historic conservation district. This is a very small 6 property district associated with Reverend Charles Brown, the church there, 12th and Rosser, and the cinder block. There's 5 cinder block homes next to it that he constructed. And we know that there's a lot more throughout the city, but this is an effort by his children. And I think nieces and nephews and the family are very involved in at least trying to recognize this as an example of his incredible work. So that will probably be coming to the Planning Commission in December with a recommendation, hopefully that BAR evaluated and make a recommendation on it. I wanted to tell, I don't know, I wrote to 108 Clark Court. I was going to send something to Jody and James. I know that's over by the university, but we have a demolition request for a really neat old building over there, but there's no, it's just one of these examples of when you see their survey and go, wow, what a cool building. And it's not the one, Jody, with that special use permit. This is a different structure, but definitely something that if you know any students that want to, do a survey of a property before it's lost, that's a good one. And then, but I wanted to ask for you all to, and is Elizabeth still on the call? I feel bad.
It appears that she's on, but it doesn't look like
she loves this stuff. This is okay.
I can't imagine that she's stayed on since the consent agenda.
Wow. Yeah, I was gonna say you're welcome.
Oh no.
We've kept her up late, but we did approve that one, right? On the
yes, we
agenda?
approved. Yeah. Yes, 1804 Chesapeake.
I was just drawn into the fun of this.
Are you going to apply, Liz?
Pardon?
Are you going to apply to be on the BAR?
I don't know. I have to think about it. But I just want to share with you, my husband has COVID and he got it this weekend. So don't think that it's over.
No.
I don't know if we were dropping our guard. He always wears a mask wherever he goes, and he works at UVA. He wears a mask, but maybe they're not hand sanitizing enough. He's not horribly sick because he's had 2, he had the vaccines, but it's just, he's sick. It's like he has the flu.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I might apply. I am thinking about it.
Please apply. We need females on this board.
Yes.
I know.
So,
I don't know if I'm.
I need some estrogen.
I don't know if I have the right makeup. Carl knows what I like.
I think you'd be just
this is
fine,
as
Liz. I think you'd be
this
great.
is as
We're as randy a group as it gets.
This is still being recorded, so I'm not going to say anything.
That's
more.
right. That's right.
Oh, we do anyway.
So I just quickly, Robert and I are moving forward, things are continuing to move forward with the cultural landscape, or at least the initial phase of the study of the downtown mall. I met with Beth Meyer last week and got some great input. She and I walked them all, and she pointed out some things that I'd never noticed, and they made me cry. And then I pointed out some things she never noticed, and I made her cry. So it was an interesting afternoon. But I after that came back and I sent a note to Breck, and this is not a request, but an invitation, a plea to all of you. And we have a situation on downtown mall that Robert, I don't know if you can just pull those slides up real quick. Just I want to share some things, and I while he's doing that, what we could use, what I need, what the BAR needs. We have a lot going on in the mall that, I don't, it's been occurring. And what I get asked all the time is, well, is this acceptable? Is this acceptable? And, I don't have the things memorized, but we've got pots all over the mall that are not, I can't answer that one. We do know what we're supposed to have relative to those things. So go ahead, Robert, too. We supposed to look a certain type, but we've got these, I don't know what to call them, keg containers on the mall used as planters. We have these plastic trellises. We have trellises with planters that look fine, but so, and then here you can see, for example, let me hold up, Robert, take a step back. The thing I'm getting at is that there's a lot going on in the mall. And there's a lot that's not covered by our guidelines, but I know we weren't able to review all of them, but I would really could use the input of all of you, and particularly those of you who've been on the BAR a while, is just to take a walk down the mall. I can send these images out and just, what do you see? What do you think? For example, again, go back to these whatever you call them, troughs. Maybe they're okay. And so the idea being is our guidelines don't cover it. We should cover it in some way. Maybe it's fine. Maybe it's acceptable. Maybe there's a recommendation to be made, but to try and, I think we're gonna have to shape some of the decision-making on the mall without, going through a formal guideline review, somewhat like we did with the tent question. We are going to get questions about tents. People are asking, well, gee, tents work. Can't we just get them year round? And then I can use the cafe spaces. So give some thought to that, because these are the questions come to me. They're not formal responses, but at least I have some idea. So with that in mind, Robert, go back to the images real quick. So go to that next one. And this is where I would say, obviously no zip ties. You're going to do it, attach things mechanically, but I would say, hold up, say, all right, but spray paint it black. We have an awful lot of electrical tape on the mall that we don't need to show you that. The click one more, let's see what I got. I can address that. Next one. All right, so here we have catenary lights. I didn't know that word until a couple of years ago. So, are we okay with whatever? Is there a style? Is there a type that we prefer? A lot of times we point to what they did at Jack's or what's at the Red Pump. So, your thoughts on that would be helpful. Next one. I can take care of that. We're not supposed to have different colors. Signage, we can take care of that. Next one. We've got miscellaneous sort of furniture. Now it's, meets the color requirement. It's metal or whatever, but, I don't know. We're getting a little bit, things are getting a little interesting. So curious what you think. This is a big one. We've got these barrels, and by the way, I noticed that we have them at Dairy Central, and they put them in fine, but then they get signs on them, and so we have to address the signage issue. But it's one of those, when you start looking for stuff on the mall, you see a lot, and I could use the feedback from you all. I don't think that these barrels should be, I mean, if you're going to use them, fine, but I don't think they should have signs on them. But, we say no bare wood, but a painted barrel looks silly. So something to give some thought to. Next up, what do you got? What's my next one? This is, again, gets back to that furniture or no unfinished wood. I probably can address that. If you see some text under it, that's where I felt like we had something in the guidelines to cover it. What's next on there, Robert? Obviously, this is a signage thing. We've seen a lot of just these handmade signs. We've even seen election signs. We can cover that with the signing regs. But curious what you all think. Next, what else do I have? Signage we can talk. Well, so we have the signage. We have the sandwich board signs. We have some standards for that. They're a little loose. Maybe they could be, maybe they're tightened up a little bit. Maybe, now looking at all the examples we have, maybe there's another way to look at that. So some thoughts on that. By the way, this is the front of York Plaza down there on the bottom right. And I remember when they changed those doors and there was the debate about, going from those dark wood doors. But I gotta tell you that just so changes that facade, having that white color there. All right, enough. Go to the next one. This is something we're working on. Some of Jason Ness in the city, who was the economic development, kind of handled a lot of things on the mall, is leaving. So that's why, but hopefully this is one of the things he'll be taking care of before he leaves. What else you got?
Jeff, I'm sorry, I have to step away for a second. I hope you don't mind. I'll be back.
I'm going to stop. Go. I'm going to take care of him from here. So the thing is, you see these little details, and sometimes the guidelines just don't address it, or sometimes there's nothing at all, or maybe it's something that needs to be tweaked. That's what I get asked the most. Is this egregious? Tell us, we can get rid of it. Or is this kind of okay, even though it's not allowed? Should we say that's okay? And if we're going to say okay, then what manner, or what is it acceptable? And just any other things as you look at the list and say, this just is or isn't working. So I don't know if y'all want to get together with a group with a big rope and walk together like you're the nursery class or whatever. But it would very much help me to get your thoughts on the mall. Take your phone, take a picture of it, send it to me and say, this is terrible, or this is fantastic, or every catenary light should look like this. Because you guys really help me see things, that I don't see, and hopefully vice versa. But that's my plea for help. An informal work group, and I even asked Beth Myers if she would be interested in giving us her thoughts. So be a great, go walk the mall with Beth, and she can point out all the things that'll make you cry. So with that, that's all I had. I thank you for your time tonight. Robert said if we weren't done by 9:30, he would be furious. So you beat the clock by 45 minutes. And I just say have a nice evening. Wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. I hug your loved ones.
I move we adjourn.
All in favor, leave the meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
Hi, guys.